How's everybody doing? What up, Grace? Hello, Aurora. And also, hello, Aurora. Say hi to the people.
Hello.
How's everybody
Hi,
doing
people.
tonight? We all having a good day? We having a
Oh,
fun
good.
time? Yeah, that's good. That's a good time. What up, neighbor Rooney? What up?
Woo.
What up,
Party,
my
party.
my neighbor?
Won't you please? Please, won't you be my
Nice.
neighbor?
Okay. All right, a good
Let's
Mr. Rogers
go.
reference. We don't get enough of those. I'm for it.
No,
I'm with it.
never.
I'm with it. Oh, he's doing the peppy
Oh,
lighter. With it.
awesome.
Sweet.
It's a win.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
Gluck in the peppy lighter. There we go.
Jeez. Wait, this first.
Oh, okay. The sus look. Okay. All right. I see. How is everybody's night going? Grace, are you still in here?
I don't know if that was from earlier or not.
Well, I know Ryan just texted me if I was streaming tonight. So
Very good.
ja. We gonna talk some Epstein. Ooh.
Bar.
Wow. All right, nice little medical reference there. Okay.
We gotta clarify.
True, true. Trump did sign the bill. Did you see? Yeah, I guess you did see. You showed me earlier Speaker Johnson being all shocked about it. But Trump had no choice at this point. If he vetoed it, it don't look good. And he blew the bill too. I know what that needs.
I'm gonna come.
There it is.
The trumpet.
I'm gonna come. He's gotta. You gotta do it.
Hi.
What are you whispering?
Secret.
Oh, secrets. Chat, we got
Gringo's hair
secret.
smells good. Yeah,
Ooh.
that's the secret.
What shampoo does he use? Not that I need it, but
Uh,
for the chat's
what
reference.
shampoo do you use, Gringo? Shea Moisture.
Oh, very nice. I use no shampoo
You can put
because
it in your beard.
I don't have any hair. I do actually have shampoo specifically for beards and conditioner specifically for beards.
That's pretty bougie. It makes sense though.
Well,
Looks
I'm a
good.
bougie guy. What can I say? And I have oil too. I have oil and salve for
Oh,
afterward.
pinkies up.
That's how I do. My pinkies are constantly
Salvia.
in an elevated position.
Facts.
The DOJ is almost certainly going to sanitize the files. I mean, if they can, isn't it going to be like a huge thing? Ugh. That won't. But if the DOJ totally sanitizes the files, which they're going to have to do anyway, because there's going to be people there who don't need their identities revealed, then it's not going to. Even if Trump isn't in there, if we don't know that by not seeing everything, that's not going to end any of this at all. We'll just be back in the same spot. Ayo, what up, gringo? Oh,
Hello.
hey, how's it goes it? Oh, what's that? You're kind of cutting in and out. He's cutting in and out. Audio. Pew. They could release total BS. True. And who knows, dude? I mean, like, we don't trust anything coming out of that. It's funny because they were always like, you trust everything out of the government, blah, 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 like, whenever you're talking, like, to a conspiracy person. And it was like, never, and they're always, like, pro-Trump people. And, like, never in our history have we had more reason not to trust the government than this one. And that's the one that they choose to trust. It's one of the craziest things. It's so fucking crazy. It's wild, quite frankly. Whole thing's got me feeling a little QAnon. They're making the frogs gay. Everybody, Trump making the frogs gay. He's sucking off those frogs, bro.
Can confirm all the frogs are gay.
Can confirm every single one. I've checked personally. One by one. Oh, what is this? Okay. What do we got? Oh, yeah. You showed me this one earlier. It needs to be a sound effect? Okay, let's see.
There's no video of President Trump sucking a ding-dong. And so what if there was?
I don't think we can because they're limited to 5 seconds, unfortunately. Which is a bummer, dude. Bummer, dude. Bummerino. Bummerino. Let's see what else is going on. Okay. Oh, the Comey case. Yeah. This is crazy, bro. This is some malicious incompetence. I don't know if you all have been following this. This is so fucked. It doesn't punch as well without the so what if he was? Trump administration's criminal prosecution of former FBI Director James Comey appeared to be in serious jeopardy Wednesday as the federal judge overseeing the case repeatedly questioned the validity of the grand jury indictment charging Comey with lying to and obstructing Congress. U.S. District Judge Michael Nachmanoff pressed prosecutors during a hearing on the events around September 25th charges against Comey, questioning whether the entire grand jury ever saw the 2-count indictment that a magistrate judge received after the grand jurors rejected one of the 3 charges proposed by interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. Nachmanoff, a Biden appointee, was so intent on establishing the precise sequence of events that day that he briefly called Halligan to the courtroom lectern, prompting her first substantive public remarks since she secured the charges. Your counsel of record, you can address the court, Nachmanoff said to Halligan, asking her to explain whether grand jurors beyond the 4-person were present when the original indictment and a narrower substitute one were presented to a magistrate judge. The 4-person and another grand juror was also present, Halligan said, apparently confirming that all the grand jury members present that day did not see the substitute indictment prepared after the group declined one of the false statement charges Halligan urged. Nachmanoff did not say precisely what action he was contemplating about the possible irregularity in the grand jury process, but his intense focus on the issue suggested he may view it as critical and perhaps fatal to the government's case. As he addressed Halligan, the judge declared he just wanted to make sure that indictment had never been seen by the full grand jury. Halligan confirmed that it had not. She then sat down after speaking for less than a minute. Assistant U.S. Attorney Tyler Lemons, who handled the bulk of the argument Wednesday, suggested the replacement indictment was a necessity due to the grand jury turning down one of the proposed charges. They really had no other way to return it, he said. True, Gringo. Although there is no pending defense motion challenging the indictment on the grounds the judge raised, a lawyer for Comey, Michael Dreeben, seized on the issue. There is no indictment, he said, adding that the statute of limitations ran out September 30th, making the procedural misstep tantamount to a complete bar to prosecution. In a court filing later Wednesday, prosecutors argued that the failure to physically put the substitute indictment before the full grand jury was no reason to dismiss the case. The government course of conduct here was permissible and proper, Halligan and her colleagues wrote, while conceding that most grand jurors were not present when the revised indictment was brought to their meeting room. Prosecutors also denied that Halligan's remarks to the grand jurors intruded on Comey's right to remain silent. The in-court exchange about the validity of the indictment came at the tail end of more than an hour of argument, focused on whether President Donald Trump's calls for Comey to face charges and the unusual steps taken to bring them about have so tainted the case that it should be dismissed as a vindictive or selective prosecution. Absolutely it should. Absolutely it fucking should. I mean, this is a witch hunt. For the people who are always like witch hunt, this is what a fucking witch hunt looks like. Nachmanoff also pressed prosecutors about whether career officials had initially recommended against prosecuting Comey, only to be told by Lemons that the answer could be, quote, privileged. Lemons, one of the lead prosecutors in Comey's case, said the existence of a so-called declination memo, which could outline weaknesses in the case, might be considered internal, quote, work product material not subject to disclosure. He repeatedly declined to answer questions from Nachmanoff about the existence of a declination memo. Lemons added, however, that he had seen drafts of memos analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of the case against Comey. I am aware of written correspondence debating whether charges should be brought, Lemons said as Nachmanoff pressed him. The exchange was a significant moment. If career prosecutors initially urged against bringing the case, it could support Comey's claim that the charges against him were brought with a political motive. Nachmanoff, who is weighing Comey's effort to dismiss the case on the grounds that it was brought to satisfy Trump's personal vendetta against him, demanded to know who was preventing Lemons from discussing the possible existence of such a memo. Lemons said his position followed discussions with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's office. Dreeben told Nachmanoff that prosecutors had not shared whether a declination memo existed. ABC reported in September, the day of Comey's indictment, that career prosecutors in Halligan's office have prepared a, quote, detailed memo urging against the Comey prosecution. No fucking duh. Dreeben spent an hour urging Nachmanoff to conclude that the case against Comey was brought solely because of Trump's personal animus towards Comey. Dreeben seized on Bondi's recent embrace of Trump's call to investigate Democrats, linked to the Epstein files as an example of how the Justice Department responds to Trump's whims. Bondi had concluded months earlier that no further criminal charges were supported by the Epstein evidence, Dreeben noted. We have never before seen in this country a blatant use of criminal justice to achieve political ends, Dreeben said, citing Trump's recent social media post that included a picture of Comey with an X over his face. A message needs to be sent to the executive branch. Lemons began his argument by asserting that Comey's indictment was the result of an apolitical grand jury process rooted only in the facts of the case. The defendant in this case was indicted because he lied to the Senate Judiciary Committee, Lemons said, noting that the grand jury returned a, quote, true bill of indictment against him. We'll have some questions about that, Nachmanoff interjected, a nod to Comey's challenge to the grand jury proceedings themselves. A magistrate judge assisting Nachmanoff earlier this week, oh, Destiny just went live, interesting, ordered prosecutors to disclose the transcripts of Halligan's grand jury appearance with Comey, an unusual ruling that he said was based on credible evidence that Halligan had botched some of his instructions to the grand jury, that it could support Comey's motion to dismiss the case. Nachmanoff briefly paused the ruling to give prosecutors a chance to appeal it, but he could rule on the matter as soon as next week. The case against Comey appears to be on increasingly flimsy ground. I don't, what do you mean? That is so charitable. Bruh, it was on flimsy ground from the moment they put it out there. Just like it was with Letitia James. They clearly did this as a big political prosecution to distract from the Epstein shit. I mean, we knew this was bullshit from day one. I don't know why they're like, oh, it's increasingly flimsy. Bruh, we all knew it was flimsy. Another federal judge is weighing whether Halligan was invalidly appointed to her post, and her ruling could sink the case against Comey. And earlier this week, a magistrate judge assisting Nachmanoff concluded that Halligan, who had no prior prosecutorial experience before Donald Trump elevated her to the powerful position, oh my God, may have made serious errors in presenting the Comey indictment to the grand jury. It's so incompetent. Like, everything this administration does is so fucking incompetent. Comey, who is facing 2 counts of lying to Congress in 2020 about the FBI's investigation of Trump's links to Russia, because he didn't lie, is seeking to have the case tossed as an egregious abuse of power by the Trump-led Justice Department. His indictment came just days before a legal deadline that accused for bringing the case at all. And the charges just came just 5 days after Trump publicly demanded it as Trump publicly demanded in a social media post directed at Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Justice Department take aim at his political adversaries, including Comey, quickly. That same week, Trump also engineered the ouster of the U.S. attorney overseeing the office in which Comey's case was under review. And he urged Bondi to install Halligan to lead the office. Halligan presented the Comey case to the grand jury just days later. What up, Cosmic? Yeah, this is absolute fucking nonsense. This is a witch hunt. This is pure incompetence from the part of the administration. I mean, like, and this is the pattern. This has been their pattern for how they conduct their legal cases in general. It's embarrassing, man. I'd be so embarrassed if I was anyone at the executive branch. But they don't have any shame. No shame. No shame. Cosmic is indeed here. And then on top of that, Texas's redistricting got overturned, which is awesome. And it looks like California's redistricting will stand. Well, because every accusation is a confession when it comes to the Republican Party at this point. That's why. That's why, neighborhooding. Because they claim the Democrats do it so that they can do something crazier, even though in reality they aren't. The Democrats never did it. It's crazy. Like, it's obviously bullshit. Alright, what else is going on? Maybe the water really is making the frogs gay. True. What's this? It's Democrat Sherphilus McCormick, charged with stealing $5 million in COVID aid funds. Federal grand jury charged U.S. Representative Sheila Sherphilus. I don't know how that's pronounced. McCormick, Democrat, Florida, with stealing $5 million in COVID-19 disaster funds, a chunk of which was then illegally contributed to her 2021 congressional campaign. Faced up to 53 years in prison. Congresswoman and her brother Edwin Sherphilus tried to launder the money through multiple accounts to disguise its source, the DOJ said, citing the indictment returned to Miami. Siblings obtained the money in July 2021. To the family health care company where they worked received a $5 million overpayment from FEMA, which funded the company's COVID vaccination staffing contract, according to the DOJ. Sherphilus McCormick and another defendant, Nadege LeBlanc, are also accused of orchestrating a straw donor scheme in which money from the FEMA contract was sent to friends and relatives who then donated it back to her campaign for Congress. Congresswoman and her 2021 tax preparer, David Spencer, are also charged in the indictment with conspiring to file a false tax return. DOJ said they claimed personal and political expenses as business deductions and inflated charitable contributions in order to reduce her tax obligations, the indictment alleges. Using disaster relief funds for self-enrichment is a particularly selfish, cynical crime. Oh, the irony! Oh, the unending irony. Oh my God. No one is above the law, yeah, except for Donald Trump, apparently, according to you. Least of all, powerful people who rob taxpayers for personal gain. Oh, this is gonna hurt. This one's gonna hurt to fucking read. We will follow the facts in this case and deliver justice. A spokesperson for Sherfilis McCormick did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment. Her attorneys, David Oscar Marcus, Margot Moss, and Melissa Madrigal, said in a joint statement that she is a committed public servant who is dedicated to her constituents. We will fight to clear her good name. Sherfilis McCormick joined the House in 22 after winning a special election to fill late Representative Alcee Hastings' seat representing Florida's 20th Congressional District. She's been under investigation in the House Ethics Committee, the panel revealed in late May. The Office of Congressional Conduct sent a referral to that committee in May 2024, laying out a number of possible violations, including that Sherfilis McCormick may have requested community project funding that would be directed to a for-profit entity. Edwin Sherfilis faces up to 35 years if convicted on the charges, while Spencer faces up to 33 years, and LeBlanc faces a 10-year maximum sentence, according to the DOJ. David Oscar Marcus is my favorite baloney brand. Or philosopher, or whatever. Fucking funny, bro. I mean, like, obviously if they did that, yeah, like, go to jail. But also, like, the irony of them, like, oh, this is such a big deal, we need to come down on this, with when we've seen Trump's shenanigans when it comes down to funds and campaign funds and so on. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Frustrating. Trump moves to weaken the Endangered Species Act. Not surprising. Of course. Majority of corporate Trump ballroom donors represented by 3 lobbying firms. Interesting. Bondi sidesteps questions about Epstein files at a press conference. Larry Summers is on leave from Harvard now, too. Yeah, I saw that. Harvard's doing an internal investigation.
Olympian from Canada who is now the leader of a transnational...
Oh, this is long. So I'll play this while I game. 1.5 speed.
National criminal enterprise. He's currently on the FBI's and has been top 10 most wanted list.
Bro,
he controls.
Why does Kash Patel always look like he really needs to take a shit? What's the deal with that? He's always standing back there like...
one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking...
Oh my God.
What? What?
Oh, I just said that's so true.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he does. He's got big poop face. Resting poop face. RPF.
Organizations in this world. He is currently the largest distributor of cocaine in Canada. Wedding collaborates closely with the Sinaloa Cartel, a foreign terrorist organization, to flood not only American but also Canadian communities with cocaine coming from Colombia. His organization is responsible for importing approximately 60 metric tons of cocaine a year into...
Oh, no. Oh, God, Neighboruni. Who cares about what, Cosmic? That's a shitty one. Fuck, marry, kill, Bondi, Noam, or Gabbard.
Who would make a bomb with a Zeranium payload? That's madness. Do you know the value of Zeranium on the open market?
Well, Cosmic, don't facepalm and not follow up. What you talking about? Who cares about what? Mary Gabbard? Those Russia connections? You gotta... Okay, so it's gotta be Mary Gabbard, fuck Bondi, and kill Noam because Noam killed that dog. Yeah, I think that's the only proper answer. Yeah. I think that's the right answer. Gringo, Aurora, what are your thoughts? We don't know what their thoughts are. On which one we fuck, marry, kill? Yeah, so either Pam Bondi, Kirsty Nome, or Tulsi Gabbard. Familiar with any of them? That's okay. You guys aren't like super hardcore politics people. Could be though. What about you? So the answer is, I think most of us have agreed on a consensus. The answer is you marry Gabbard because at least she's kind of interesting. You fuck Pam Bondi, and you only fuck her because you definitely kill Kirsty Nome for killing that dog. Yeah, I think you probably would. Yeah. Well, here, let's see. And then also just to get a look at them. All right, we've got Pam Bondi. Well, Pam Bondi's on the screen right now. That's Pam Bondi. Right? Oh, that is not a flattering picture of Pam Bondi. So that's Pam. Okay. Then we've got Tulsi Gabbard. Now, keep in mind, she's also a Russian agent, but she does kind of a little bit look like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she's kind of got that cool rogue hair thing going on, right? And then you've got, is it Kirsty or Christy? Christy, no. She's probably the prettiest, but she killed a dog. Well, I don't know. She didn't look so great in these. And she killed a dog, so fuck her. So, yeah. Pam.
She looks like her face is melting off.
Yeah, I think she seems like she's had a lot of work done. Pam, Tulsi, Christy.
She looks like Jack Nicholson in the Batman movie.
Like the Joker. Here, you know, we'll pull that up. Hang on. There we go. Look. It's Christy Nome. South Park does joke about that a lot. Which was the dog killer? This one. Dog killer at least somewhat interesting Trump stooge. Also kind of a Trump stooge, but at least somewhat well, oh, actually, sorry. All three of them are Trump stooges, so never mind. But she's the attorney general, and South Park has made fun of her and her nonstop. She's the only one they haven't made fun of. With her, they constantly show her with shit on her face, and it's supposed to be Trump's shit on her nose. With her, they're always talking about how she killed dogs. And yeah, they haven't gone after Tulsi yet. Marry Tulsi, fuck Bondi, kill. No, exactly. That appears to be the consensus. The general consensus. Cosmic? What did you say? Because you only gave us Mary Gabbard. Tulsi is hot as fuck. Shame about the Russian accent thing. Yeah, she's a pretty good looking woman. Is this really her? Is that really her? Damn. Of course. Always happy to. She surfs? Huh. Oh, she's from Hawaii. Okay. That's cool. Ugh. She used to be a Democrat. It's so sad. Ugh. She pulled a Dave Rubin. Why left the left? Alright, well. Hair is Cruella. It reminds me of Rogue with the one, like, gray stripe through it. I don't know. Yeah. Because Rogue's got that gray stripe. No, you know. What do you mean? What you mean? You said, I don't know. Oh, I do know. Oh, okay, gotcha. I do know. You're right. I fucking know.
Los Angeles via semi-trucks from Mexico. To put that in perspective, 60 metric tons is approximately the weight of 40 standard cars. Imagine that. That's how much cocaine, the weight of 40 cars, he is bringing into our country a year.
Or the equivalent of one night at a Hollywood party. Mexico.
In the course of the investigation, more than 35 individuals have been indicted. Over 2,000 kilos and numerous weapons have been seized. Approximately $3.2 million in cryptocurrency has been recovered. And over $13 million in physical assets has been confiscated.
We're gonna have the best crypto. We're gonna be the best at crypto.
Wedding is also accused of murdering a federal witness after he was indicted in 2024. He used a Canadian website called The Dirty News to post photographs of the witness and his wife in order to locate him, which ultimately succeeded. The witness was gunned down in a restaurant in Medellin before he could testify against Wedding.
No,
Today
girl. It's Medellin, okay? We speak Argentine here.
Sealing a new indictment, charging Wedding with 2 additional counts of witness tampering and intimidation, murder, money laundering, and drug trafficking. The website that was used to hunt down this witness and his wife, that has since been removed. That has been deleted. Protecting federal witnesses from retaliation is core to the department's mission. It's about individual safety, but more, it's about protecting the rule of law itself. The new indictment also includes several other individuals involved in the murder of the witness and other crimes in connection with this criminal enterprise. You're going to be hearing more about that from the people behind me. We're working very closely with our partners at the State Department and the Department of Treasury. The State Department has raised the reward for Ryan Wedding from $10 million to $15 million.
And Gringo's parents' department before they retired.
We're offering $2 million rewards for information leading to the arrest of those involved in the murder of the witness.
Back in
the Treasury Department's foreign asset control.
Back in the dizzle-izzle. I never really got into that stuff, only got coaxed to try a tiny amount when I was younger one. I live in Los Angeles. Enough said.
Seizing assets belonging to approximately 19 of the targets associated with Wedding's criminal enterprise, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I want to thank the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, as well as our Canadian law enforcement partners for their steadfast commitment to bring Ryan Wedding to justice. I also want to thank the Colombian National Police who have greatly helped us. Let me be clear, drugs are killing our kids. Whether you are a street-level drug dealer, a common street-level drug dealer, or an international drug kingpin, we are coming for you, we will find you, and you will be accountable and held to justice for your crimes. It's killing our kids, it's killing our friends, it's killing our relatives, and this guy is responsible for a tremendous amount of that horror. President Trump gave us one mission: make America safe again. And we will not sit idly by and let these drug dealers continue to do business, run roughshod on our neighborhoods, and put the American people and our Canadian people in harm's way. To the American people, the Justice Department will use every tool available to catch these monsters. Thank you to all of our partners in this fight. From day one, Ryan Wedding has been on the top of Director Patel's radar to get him. We have talked about him constantly. And I'd now like to introduce Director Patel, who has done a tremendous...
by our enemies to go after our youth and our communities and kill and destroy American civilization. Under President Trump's leadership, we have been shutting that down since day one. As the Attorney General mentioned, this is an indictment, an additional indictment, an arrest of multiple subjects, nearly a dozen more, and that brings the total to approximately 36 indicted. And you'll hear the details from the tremendous team established here by the Attorney General. Most importantly, you do not get to be a drug kingpin and evade the law. Make no mistake about it. Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. This Justice Department and this FBI will work with our Canadian counterparts and the government officials across the world to bring him to justice. He is responsible for engineering a narco-trafficking and narco-terrorism program that we have not seen in a long time.
As well.
He will not evade justice. We are here today because this Department of Justice, behind Attorney General's brilliant leadership and the Deputy Attorney General, have made it clear to the American people with the indictments they have brought that law enforcement and agencies like this FBI will lead the effort to go out there and make sure these animals are brought to justice. And that's exactly what we will do. This step, this interagency step, is a huge, huge step towards obtaining justice for so many American lives lost and so many American lives saved. Thanks to the courageous efforts of law enforcement. This is what a great team looks like, working together for the American people under the motto that President Trump set forth to make America safe again. It's incredibly humbling for this FBI to be a part of it and to lead out the efforts on Ryan Wedding. And for those of you out there that have any information on Ryan Wedding, now is the time to speak up.
That's so weird because you said coaxial. I read it as coaxed as well. Man, the brain is an interesting organ.
Now is the time to help us. This FBI has always engaged the public around the world for their assistance in bringing some of the world's most dangerous criminals and terrorists to justice. And we are doing so again today. He will not evade justice. He will not evade our capture. He will not evade arrest. And he will not evade prosecution. Because of the Attorney General's leadership here today, we are taking a huge, huge step in that direction. And I'm honored to be a part of this FBI and leading its men and women in law enforcement on a daily basis. It's really one of the best things I've ever encountered. And the teamwork is something I just want to stress more than anything. Our federal, state, and local partners have bonded together like never before to bring you these results that we've talked about these last 8-9 months. And today is just yet another example of a historic achievement for the Trump administration in safeguarding American lives. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the Assistant Director in charge of our Los Angeles Field Office, Akil Davis, for some more details about the FBI's work. Thank you.
Speaking of puns, where's Daniel?
Good morning. My name is Akil Davis, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Division. Today we are here to highlight the success of the FBI's Homeland Security Task Force in which this operation fell under. Our Homeland Security Task Force is made up of several federal agencies along with state and local counterparts. We work closely with RCMP, as you're going to hear from later, to target the Ryan Wedding drug trafficking organization. Make no mistake, Ryan Wedding is extremely dangerous. He's extremely violent, and he's extremely wealthy. He's being protected by the Sinaloa cartel, along with others in the country of Mexico. We will find him, and we will bring him to justice. He is so important to the efforts of the United States government that the State Department has put up a $15 million reward for his capture. Let me say that again. A $15 million reward for his capture. Ryan Wedding has orchestrated murders against his rivals, against cooperating witnesses, against anybody that crosses his path. And as you've heard already, he has trafficked record levels of drugs, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, all the things that are rampant on our streets. He's been a part of that and a main cause of that.
By the way, I'm so glad people have generally stopped saying fentanyl. That shit was so annoying to me.
And that is why you see so much resources dedicated to dismantling his organization, which we have done mostly here today. We will capture Ryan Wedding. We will bring him to justice. If you have information leading to his capture, you can contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov. Make no mistake, Ryan Wedding is dangerous. Do not approach him on your own. Please call us and let us do our job. Thank you. I will now turn it over to United States Attorney Bill Asaley.
Bill Asaley came from California to be here today. That's how important this case is. And President Trump, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and I are thrilled to have Bill Asaley on our team. I think Deputy Attorney General Blanche talks to Bill Asaley daily, and I talk to him at least once a week. He is doing an incredible job to keep America safe and to keep Californians safe. So it's my honor now to have Bill join us.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Bill Asaley. I am the first assistant U.S. attorney at the Central District of California, the leader of that office. As the Attorney General said, today an indictment was unsealed against Ryan James Wedding, a former snowboarder who was once an Olympic athlete and who is now on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list and the subject of a $15 million reward. Wedding and 14 other defendants, including a Canadian lawyer and a Latin pop star, are federally charged with orchestrating the January 2025 murder of a witness who was shot 5 times in the head at a restaurant in Colombia and who died instantly. Wedding placed a bounty on the victim's head in the erroneous belief that the victim's death would result in the dismissal of criminal charges against him and his international drug trafficking ring and would further ensure that he was not extradited to the United States. He was wrong. The murder also involved a Canadian website, as the Attorney General discussed, which claimed to be a news outlet. This so-called news outlet, the Dirty News, was paid by a co-defendant to post a photograph of the victim, witness, and his wife online so that he could be hunted down and killed. Law enforcement yesterday seized that website pursuant to a judicially authorized warrant. That website no longer exists. I want to say this to Mr. Wedding and to the other defendants involved in his drug trafficking organization. Your days are numbered. Our agents and prosecutors will relentlessly pursue you and anyone who assists you and bring you to justice. Not just anywhere. We're going to bring you to justice in the United States of America. And I want to just add a couple things here. Mr. Wedding is the most prolific cocaine trafficker in Canada, but he used Southern California, my district, as a hub for his logistics to move the cocaine. The reason he selected California is because of California's weak laws on crime. They knew if they were popped with cocaine in California, they probably wouldn't get much of a sentence. But they made one big miscalculation. They didn't think about us, the U.S. Department of Justice, Attorney General Bondi, and what this administration would do to individuals like him who use the United States to traffic their drugs. And he will be brought to justice. I'm confident of that. I want to note the lawyer that we arrested yesterday. We arrested 12 people yesterday in an international takedown. You're going to hear more about that. One of which is his lawyer in Canada. His lawyer advised them to kill this witness.
I looked away for 2 seconds, Cosmic. What are you talking about? California lacks laws on drug enforcement. Why? Just because we have legal weed? Laxative laws. California's laxative laws. You think that's what they're saying? Because, yeah, California actually... Oh. The person I had on was... What? You mean this guy? The video. Okay. Yeah. Well, he's a representative of the Trump administration. Everything they do has to be an indictment of, Democrat policy. So...
His lawyer told him if you kill this witness, the case would be dismissed. That lawyer is now in custody, and he'll be extradited and brought to justice here in the United States. So all this to say, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. When the United States government and this Department of Justice decides we're going after someone, we're going to get you. America always gets its guy. And let me tell you this as well. Not only do we have a mandate from the Attorney General and as the Attorney General and the FBI Director said, to make America safe again by the President, through this operation today, we're making North America safe again. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris Lambert, Senior Bureau Official at the Department of State.
Great, thank you. Good morning. So I'm Chris Lamberg, head of the International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Bureau at the Department of State. I want to thank the Attorney General for hosting us today for this important event. So today, the Department of State, as you've heard, is continuing to fulfill one of President Trump's first promises when he took office, to stop the brutal criminals who are trafficking deadly drugs into our country. In coordination with the FBI and our partners in Mexico and Canada, the Department of State is increasing our reward offer, as you've heard, to up to $15 million for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of Ryan James Wedding. This is a $5 million increase from our previous reward offer. Wedding abandoned an Olympic-level athletic path for depraved violence and cocaine trafficking. He worked closely with the foreign terrorist organization Sinaloa Cartel, as you've heard, to traffic bulk quantities of cocaine from South America to the United States and Canada. As you have also heard, his heinous crimes did not end there.
Oh, boy. Madam, you have been summoned. Pikachu! Pikachu! Get over here! Come on. Come on, babes. Come here. Come here. I know. You were sleepy. Come here. It's not up to me. It's up to chat. Mikachu. That's your girl. Oh. Mwah. Hi. Hit those super Mikas. So good. Such a good girl. Such a good girl. Can I get your paw? Thank you. Oh, you don't want to leave it there, huh? No, you're uncomfortable. Ooh. Are you tired? Are you sleepy? Come on, Mwah. Sleepy, sleepy. You wanna go back to your nap? You wanna go back to your nap? Oh. Okay. Go ahead, babes. Off she goes. Sleep it off. Sleep it off, girl. Wait, what did I do?
January 2025, Wedding allegedly ordered the murder of a U.S. federal witness in Medellin, Colombia. In addition to our focus on taking down Wedding, we are offering rewards up to $2 million each for information leading to the unknown assassins responsible for that January 2025 murder. We hope the public will recognize these criminals from surveillance photographs taken the day of the assassination in Medellin and will come forward to identify them. These brazen, illegal activities will be stopped, and the State Department will continue to apply all its tools, including rewards programs, to pursue violent criminals, drug traffickers, and those who assist narco-terrorist organizations. We will continue to build a stronger, safer, and more prosperous hemisphere in the Americas by ensuring that no one, not even former Olympians, is above the law. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce John Burley, the Secretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence at the Department of Treasury.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for all the work you do to keep our communities safe. Today, we're leveraging Treasury's longstanding counter-narcotics tools alongside law enforcement and international partners for maximum effect. Under President Trump's leadership, alongside these partners, Treasury is targeting one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives, Ryan Wedding. This action is part of a broader administration effort to stop the flow of deadly narcotics into the United States, a crisis that has taken far too many American lives. Ryan Wedding is responsible for moving, as the Attorney General said, multi-ton quantities of cocaine through Colombia and Mexico for distribution in the United States and Canada. He's also believed to have ordered dozens of murders around the world. Wedding operates through a complex web of individuals and companies to launder his drug proceeds, using everything from front businesses to luxury cars to cryptocurrency. Today, Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Control imposed financial sanctions on Wedding and his network. These targets span the globe and have enabled his criminal enterprise by laundering money, providing protection and intelligence, assisting in murders, and even training hitmen. Our sanctions are designed to cut Wedding and his network off from the U.S. and international financial system and help put an end to his deadly activities. Most importantly for Treasury, U.S. and international businesses are now on notice. Should you choose to assist Wedding by materially supporting him and his network, we will find you, cut you off from the U.S. financial system, and help our DOJ partners bring you to justice as well. I'll close with this. President Trump, Attorney General Bondi, Director Patel, our other interagency partners, and Secretary Bessent are leading the fight against narcotics trafficking. The Trump administration will never stop fighting to protect the American people, and we at Treasury are very proud to contribute to that mission. And I'll be followed by Michael Duham, the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Thank you.
Oh, Canadians.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Duhane, Commissioner of the RCMP. I want to begin by thanking Attorney General Pam Bondi for inviting me for this special announcement. I'd quite say historical announcement as well, considering what we're dealing with.
Canada.
I'm pleased to be here today to highlight significant results by the FBI and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, better known as the RCMP. As Director Patel mentioned, the RCMP and FBI have been working together to disrupt and target organized crime affecting both our countries and other countries around the world. No single agency or nation can combat transnational organized crime alone. This is why strong, trusted partnerships are essential, just as we continue to illustrate in this file. As part of the FBI Operation Giant Slalom, the highest level of organized crime were targeted for their involvement in a range of serious crimes, as you heard earlier, from drug trafficking to murder to conspiracy to commit murder and continuing criminal enterprise. The RCMP in Canada, as well as its office located in Bogota, Los Angeles, and Mexico, worked closely with the FBI throughout the investigation. Yesterday morning, the RCMP and Ontario Provincial Police proceeded by arresting 7 Canadians with ties to the Wedding organized crime group. I want to emphasize that our work is not done. Fugitive Ryan Wedding remains one of the top threats to Canadian public safety, and as per the previous indictment, continues to run an over $1 billion a year criminal enterprise. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank everyone in the RCMP, the FBI, and U.S. Department of Justice who have spent the last 2 years and countless of hours away from their family to get the job done when it looks at Operation Giant Slalom. Thank you for your partnership and protecting Canadians, Americans, and people around the world.
Thank you. There's one thing I wanted to add. This is an announcement, and we're up on a hard stop. We can take a few questions if you have them. But first, wait, I want Director Patel, will you add something about his...
Oh, God, I did it again. Hang on.
His description for us, please? I don't know if we really got that. He could also change his description. Or Akil. Go ahead. Thanks.
Can we turn those around? Yeah.
Yes, let's turn these around.
Ryan Wedding is approximately 6'4" and 230 to 250 pounds. As you see in these pictures
He's a
here,
big guy.
please understand that he might change his hair color, his appearance, and do anything to avoid capture. But someone like Ryan Wedding is going to stick out in Mexico. And that is why we're soliciting the public's help to try to identify, locate him, and arrest him. Again, there's a $15 million reward for information leading to his arrest and capture. Thank you.
Questions?
On topic first, it was mentioned that the Sinaloa cartel is helping to protect him. Are Mexican authorities cooperating with the U.S. in helping to secure his arrest? And I also have an off-topic as well.
Yes, it's a short answer. Do you want to add something, Akil?
Sure. We're working with our legal attaché office housed at the embassy in Mexico City to try to locate and arrest Wedding. Again, through significant protection by the Sinaloa cartel and others, that has been difficult.
And that's why it's so important that you get his picture out there. He could change his hair color. He could change his appearance. You know, he's got some powerful people protecting him. But this is $1 billion a year of drugs that he is charged with being responsible for. $1 billion. Go ahead, now, off topic.
On the Epstein files, does the new investigation by the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney prevent the department from releasing all of the remaining files?
So we have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law and to have maximum transparency. Also, we will always encourage all victims to come forward.
What are the next steps, Madam Attorney General, for the DOJ regarding what we assume President Trump will sign into law with the Epstein files? Is this going to be on the Justice Department website? What are you doing here over the next 30 days as we understand it?
We will continue to follow the law with maximum transparency while protecting victims.
When you say follow the law, Madam Attorney General, do you mean that you will provide all the files by 30 days?
We will follow the law. The law passed both chambers last evening. It has not yet been signed, but we will continue to follow the law, again, while protecting victims, but also providing maximum transparency.
Madam Attorney General, the DOJ statement earlier this year saying that the files would not release mentioned the fact that the review of the documents and the evidence did not suggest that any additional investigation of third parties was warranted. What changed since then that you launched this investigation?
Information that has come forward. Information. There's information, new information, additional information, and again, we will continue to follow the law, to investigate any leads. If there are any victims, we encourage all victims to come forward, and we will continue to provide maximum transparency under the law.
Wedding, Madam General. On Ryan Wedding, you mentioned,
Madam Attorney General, the issue with the new information that you just indicated, is the department seeking information perhaps from the Epstein estate, because Mr. Blanche did not have that information when he interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell? What new information? And would you limit the new investigation to just those named persons that the president talked about, or is this a broad, open-ended investigation?
I would refer to the Deputy Attorney General's post that he put out on X, and we're not going to say anything else on that because now it is a pending investigation in the Southern District of New York. You're on point. Hard stop. One more question? Sure.
President Trump has previously said that he may consider authorizing military strikes within Mexico to go after cartels. Given the importance of this case, I'm wondering if the DOJ has engaged on search for Ryan.
Yeah, we're not going to discuss anything with the Department of War right now, but right now I will tell you it is the Treasury Department, the State Department, our office, the FBI, working with Canadian authorities and working with the Mexican authorities hand in hand. And that includes the Mexican military. You had one more on Wedding?
Sure. CBC, you mentioned a Canadian lawyer. If you can tell us more about it, the extradition of a Canadian lawyer. And also a question for Commissioner Michael Duhem on 7 other individuals who are linked to Ryan Wedding. If we can tell us on the extradition, what are the next steps?
Sure. Do you want to take the Canadian? I think Bill will take the attorney because that attorney is being prosecuted in California, and then I'll turn it over to Director Duhem.
Yeah, the attorney he's named in the indictment that was unsealed today, his name is Deepak Paradkar. Paradkar. He is a lawyer. I'll have the Canadian police commissioner provide more details. He was one of the people arrested yesterday. I understand he initially refused to come out of his home. He put up a little bit of resistance, but he was eventually taken into custody. It was very important for us to get him because when you have people who are officers of the court, who are lawyers, we take oaths to protect the public and defend the law. And when you have lawyers who are assisting international drug trafficking players on how to evade law enforcement and to murder witnesses, we can't have that stand. So it's very important to us that the lawyer be charged and the lawyer be brought to justice. I'll have the commissioner speak about the extradition process. There are about, I believe, 7 individuals that were arrested in Canada. We are still looking for one more individual in Canada, and they will all be extradited here to the U.S., where they will be brought to the Central District of California, and they will be charged and tried here in our court system. So I'll let the commissioner speak more about the arrests and the extradition process.
So thank you. I think he's covered quite a bit there with regards to the next steps and the ideas. Yesterday, we engaged in an operation following information that we received and arrest 7 out of 8 Canadians. All of them are currently locked up, waiting the extradition process. So they'll have a fair process in front of a judge, and then our Department of Justice will communicate with the justice here, and then we'll go through the steps of the extradition. But the premise is everybody will charge in the United States. So, and you had something about 7. Is there something else?
You know more about those 7 Canadians.
Well, the 7 Canadians were arrested in the province of Quebec, some in Ontario, some in Alberta. We still have eyes on another person, but they are being charged conspiracy to commit murder, trafficking, as I listed earlier, conspiracy, drug trafficking, and murder as well.
Timeline of the extradition.
Well, that's before the courts, and I don't control that, unfortunately, because it happened tomorrow if it's just to me.
Any chance you can say that in French very quickly?
Très rapidement, oui, 7 individus ont été arrêtés, 7 sur 8 ont été arrêtés au Canada, dans la province de Québec, dans la province d'Ontario, ainsi qu'en Alberta. Nous sommes à la recherche d'une dernière personne. Les gens sont arrêtés, les 7 sont...
She's probably fuming. She's like, French? In America? Absolutely not.
Arrêtés, sont en prison présentement et attendent le processus d'extradition pour les ramener ici à faire face à la justice américaine. Merci.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to take it?
You know, I like that Southern
The Attorney General
talk.
has previously said that she would refuse to release any information that would
Southern.
victimize victims, and I'm just wondering whether that stands.
Southern.
Well, the law isn't something.
You like that Southern gentleman talk. It's a white Euro language. It's fine. True. Good point.
In the law yet, and of course we're going to protect victims, and the law has written
allows
us to do that. You know, the law has carve-outs to protect victims and to protect information surrounding victims, which is what we do not only in this case but in every case. So it's a fair question, but neither the House nor the Senate's version, the same version, suggested otherwise. So,
thank you all.
Oh, avoided Epstein stuff. Okay, interesting. Southern, that's Southern talk. Yes.
Now the question is, what kind of Southern you talking about right now?
I tend to go for the plantation owner Southern.
Oh, you've got that Savannah drawl.
That Savannah drawl.
Or you could talk like you're from the Panhandle.
Well, I'm not quite familiar with that one. I sound more like Forrest Gump.
I think you know it because Forrest Gump himself
it is.
has that Panhandle
You ain't
accent.
got no legs, Lieutenant Dan. Whoa. Okay. My browser just restarted. Okay, let's see. What else? What's a good watch? Oh, nice. Thank you for the hell yeah, Aurora. Hell yeah! Hells to the yeah. Chat.
Giggity, giggity.
Giggity, giggity, goo. All right. Yeah. Fun. Oh, let's see. What's Tiny is on right now. Let's see what he's up to. Hassan stuff.
He still has some kind of exclusive deal with Twitch. I don't know if they give those anymore.
Oh, it's
There's
my
literally no reason
20-month
not to
sub
discriminate against it.
anniversary.
He's completely cutting his off that entire audience. It also seems like he's afraid to go on shows that are too adversarial. Like, forget just like debating history or whatever. He could go on shows like Fresh and Fit or whatever else. Not necessarily that, whatever. He could do things like that, and these would be huge viewership events. He could farm clips. He could do all that. But he's so scared. So what he wants to do is he wants to grow organically on his own platform, but he doesn't want to lose any Twitch viewership, so he won't dual stream. He can't have any confrontation because he's too stupid or ideologically captured. He knows it. And then he's just fucked. Like, how does he expect to grow? So he gets his PR firm and then all these Gamergate-inducing women in journalism to write these puff pieces on him. But, lil bro, people that read the New York Times don't fucking watch Twitch. Nobody's reading a variety piece on you and being like, oh, I'm going to go watch Hassan Piker stream on Twitch. It's just not that type of viewership.
True.
Yeah, he's mind-fucked himself in his own little fortress arc because of how many lies he's told about other people and about himself that he can never branch out. He's locked himself off. You know?
System where I'm basically an island. Okay? I have a lot of friends, and it's great. And that island is big.
I
Very
read
big.
it
One of the
in
biggest
my
islands
time sometimes.
in the streaming world, right? It's one of the top 10 largest islands, but it's an island nonetheless. And the problem is we're partitioned off from the rest of the world. we're partitioned off of the rest of the world because anytime this island travels, like the natives of this island travel to other islands, okay, and to show friendship and collaboration, the enemy islands come in and seize in on the waters and start making it, uninhabitable for all of the other surrounding islands. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, in order for this community to just not stay the same fucking size and consistently expand and spread the good gospel.
Overly online prob don't count out. True.
I have to expand. Right now, I'm not doing enough on that front. Yes, you need more TikTok editors. 5 TikToks in 11 days.
But spamming content to TikTok and Instagram is not going to do it. It's going to grow
You
your
read
audience.
everything true.
It'll grow on those platforms.
Cryptic's
but
in
I
there.
I'm not aware of any
Cryptic.
Twitch streamers that are getting big on Twitch. Just
Why are
because
you
of
over
Instagram
there?
and TikTok.
Not
the Twitch
also
audience
watching
or people that watch streams are just a kind of person. Like stream content is a kind of thing you view. Like if you got a really big TikTok following,
I
you probably
am
know
a
people
type
follow
of
on Instagram
person.
or vice versa. But to go from that to YouTube streams or Twitch streams, it's very hard to do.
Not good enough. Yeah, we should have been putting out 30 TikToks a day. I'm gonna tell Austin Ox to hire one of these like clip farms. We should have been putting out 30 TikToks a day. They probably
hire. Why would you hire somebody if you're opposed to owning capital? But you'd be a boss or an employer.
we would have had at least like
so
10 of
we
those
need to
30 go
go.
super fucking omega viral.
D-Sway. If you guys have any suggestions for shit to watch,
shoulda, coulda, wouldas. It don't matter.
Go on and shove 'em and share.
Quality over quantity, bro. I get you. No.
No. He needs a clout, baby.
On TikTok, it's not quality over quantity.
It's
On
clout.
TikTok, it's about speed
and clout.
And it's about pumping it.
He
It's
needs
about
that
flooding the
clout.
base.
Hell yeah.
Flooding the zone.
Flooding the zone. That was Scarecrow's phrase of the month. Last month. You want to watch Theo float conspiracy theories to Joe Rogan? That actually sounds kind of entertaining. Yeah, why not? This will be fun. It'll be for a few yucks, a few laughs.
With JFK. Think of that. That was before we didn't go to the moon.
Yeah.
It's 1963.
no.
That was before Israel didn't kill him.
Oh,
Think so?
God.
I didn't say anything.
I heard you say Israel killed him.
You did?
That's what I heard.
Jamie, did you put something in this?
They didn't. The glass. They didn't do it. Oh, before Israel didn't do it. Oh, I see what you did. They got me. They
How,
got
how
me.
much longer does Israel let us stay alive, do you think? That's the big question.
Why were they?
What did you say? Is that AI?
What are you saying?
That's Sora?
Fuck are you saying?
I didn't say anything.
What are you saying?
Huh? Talking about Israel Adesanya.
Oh, well, he loves you. Don't worry about it.
People just want to kind of keep these higher powers. They know what they're doing. It just starts to feel like the experiment, like we're just really seeing the experiment, you know?
It is
It's
a
almost
little-
like, say you were playing the game Mario or something,
Right.
and one day Mario, instead of
is
just
so
going
bad.
this way on the screen, he fucking turns and looks at you, and he's like, I see what you're doing. That's what it feels like we are right now. Like we're looking
Like,
at the...
if you watch Theo Von's comedy, which I'll admit I've laughed at stuff here and there that he's done, especially the Bobby, that shit is hilarious. But you don't listen to him and go, this is a particularly well-informed political commentator.
People controlling everything and be like,
Yeah.
oh.
That's all because of the internet, dog.
All right, so Theo Von was just on Joe Rogan's podcast, and this was a wild episode. Theo was going off about Israel, Palantir, global surveillance, Epstein, and Rogan's handler, Peter Thiel, who Rogan had to defend a few times and try to calm Theo down because Theo was getting really worked up about this stuff. And Joe seemed kind of concerned about it, you know, because Joe said Theo started to spiral a few months ago. And then during this podcast, you could tell Joe definitely thought Theo was being way too paranoid. So Rogan had to push back a lot, which he rarely does anymore. But I think he's worried Theo's losing it. And he obviously doesn't like his guests talking bad about Peter Thiel and saying inflammatory stuff about Israel. Like, even with the Epstein files, now Rogan seems really uncomfortable talking about it since he knows a lot of people wrapped up in it. Like Peter Thiel, who downplayed his involvement with Epstein on Rogan's podcast. Also, his name was mentioned in the recent email drop. Epstein said it was fun meeting with him in 2014. So Rogan knows he has to be careful when talking about this stuff since he knows a bunch of people associated with Epstein, and him and Theo helped Trump get elected, which doesn't look good. So when Theo says the government is trying to protect files, Joe's like, do you really think that? And then he tries to change the subject.
You're setting, and they don't live in nice neighborhoods. You know, like now there's a lot of like billionaire files that our government protects and stuff. But back then,
You really think so?
I don't know.
I don't know either. That's what makes me nervous. I don't.
Oh, I've seen this.
You may have thought that was funny, but what if it was the other way around?
I've seen that one. I think Aurora might have actually sent me that one before.
No.
I mean, they just had that thing that came out about the Trump Epstein thing the other day. That whole thing's just a kickball at this point, I feel like.
Bro, have you ever seen that video of me and Tim Dillon where Tim Dillon is laying out the scandal that took place in like...
Yeah, so Rogan's in too deep, and Theo kind of is too. That's why he's losing his shit. You know, because he thinks the U.S. government and Israel are protecting files, spying on everyone with Palantir, and it sounds like are even having people assassinated, which is pretty wild considering he had on Trump, who's obviously connected to Epstein.
Yep,
Thiel was
definitely sent that short.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That's gold.
It is absolute gold. So good, the best gold. The kind of gold I'd put in the Oval Office.
Tier to make a database on every American.
More to
who's also
come,
very
for
pro-Israel
sure.
and likes Netanyahu. Also, Theo had on JD Vance twice. Who's a
Oh,
Theo plant,
behave.
And Theo's
Oh,
friend with Jared
behave.
Kushner, who's
Oh,
connected
fuck.
to Epstein, Netanyahu, and
Oh,
Thiel.
behave.
So if he actually believes that's what's going on, he's flying really close to the
Is
sun,
Mika
and I don't
trained
think
to save you in case of medical emergency?
Like, save me how?
Like, if you need the Heimlich or something.
No. I should
Oh,
get her
no.
trained for that. No, that'd be
Yes, she's smart enough, I think.
Yeah, she's a smart girl. You a smart girl, Mika.
She can do it.
She's looking at me. She's like, dude, I'm trying to fucking sleep, dog. Leave me alone.
She's really tired.
She's so sleepy.
She's been through a lot today.
Oh, yeah, so much. Use the corner of the counter? Self-Heimlich, yeah, true. Did you know that? Did you guys know that trick? It hurt, but it'll work. Yeah.
you can handle it. You know, if you're going to be calling out Epstein, Israel, and Palantir, I don't know if you want to be hanging out with J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, and Jared Kushner. Because, I mean, now it sounds like Theo's really paranoid, and he thinks people are trying to take him out. Because also right after Charlie Kirk got assassinated, the DHS put out that video with him in it, which caused him to get a lot of backlash and death threats. And the way he was talking about all this stuff during the podcast, it seems like he might believe that video was meant to be a threat or a warning or something. You know, like they're trying to scare him from talking about certain topics or people. Also, Theo said he's been hanging out with Candace Owens recently, and you know, she's definitely put these ideas in his head.
A lot of people think the
Not
losers like some dumb
Clandis.
MK Ultra thing. That
Oh.
they tricked him and hypnotized him and got him to go in
Not
and shoot that guy.
Clandis.
Well, I think there's a lot of that going on, and yes, I did have dinner at Candace Owens' house recently, so maybe
The Homeland Security, was that what it was?
yeah, just put it up online, and it was
Was it
after that
Homeland
Charlie
Security?
Kirk thing, yeah. And so then I was like
Right.
super scared. You remember? Remember, I was texting like you. I was just texting people to make sure everybody's okay. I didn't know if they were like just gonna kill people that had been on TikTok or whatever. Like, I had no idea what they were gonna do.
I just can't believe they did that with you, where they just put it in there as if like you were endorsing that.
Well, it just kind of, and it was just a scary time. That was the same
Is
time
this
as
it? I ain't going out that
hacking the
way, no
Charlie
way.
Kirk thing.
Who greenlit that? It's like that's not how you envisioned the government. The government made a hype video.
Yeah, they were making like deportation hype videos with trap beats and shit, and I was like, "What are we doing?" That's what I'm saying. Everything is turned into like the WWE. It's none of it's real.
It's 100% that Mike Judge movie. It's Idiocracy.
Oh, Idiocracy, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was scary, man. Because then I got because there was just like a lot of threats, and then things got like then it was just kind of that made me kind of paranoid.
And then Theo said he had a breakdown at a doctor's appointment because someone working there was a
My
fan
Batman
and tried
like
to give
tool.
him a gift. And then someone took a picture of him outside, so he freaked out, and he maybe thought he was being spied on or somebody was after him or something. So Rogan had to spend a lot of time during this podcast trying to calm him down and tell him it's not the end of the world. And this is the most pushback he's given a guest in a while. Like when they started talking about Palantir and Peter Thiel, Rogan got really defensive because Thiel's been getting a lot of backlash recently, and Joe gets really annoyed that his comedy friends keep making fun of his billionaire tech friends. Like, he also got pissed that his friends were calling Elon Musk a Nazi.
I have friends that are comedians that called you a Nazi, and I got pissed off.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Like
He's
not
definitely
as a
Nazi. No, because you did that thing at the. My heart goes
But,
out
like,
to you.
What up? I feel so tired.
All of them.
Literally.
Tim Walz.
So Rogan hates comedians bashing Elon and Thiel because Rogan's completely sold out to them and is totally ready to embrace AI, mind reading, and transhumanism. Like, he randomly started talking about how humans are going to go extinct soon, and he's like, man, Thiel gets a lot of shit, but he's 100% right. Then he starts defending him from everybody claiming he's evil, which is probably what Theo thinks. You know, he doesn't say anything bad about him here, but afterwards he goes off about Palantir, which gets pretty awkward. And then also Candace Owens probably has Theo convinced that Peter Thiel is a human hybrid that's already merged with technology and AI.
And look at Elon Musk and Sam Altman and
That's
Peter
not-
Thiel.
that's not
I'm
right, dog.
pretty sure they're hybrid. You know what I mean? Like, they
I
just
see
look
what you mean.
like an Apple software that I should be able to download at night, you know? Like, when my phone's getting an update or something. It's something in the eyes. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I know I'm human. I don't know if I stabbed you if you bleed, you know? I'm not going to stab them. But I don't know if they bleed all the way. I think a battery would fall out. You know what I mean?
So Joe probably doesn't love that Theo hangs out with her and is being influenced by her. Like, Joe even gets defensive about that interview Thiel did where he's asked if humans should survive, and he criticizes the interviewer and says he didn't let Thiel stutter and stammer long enough.
Yeah. While we're human, and I think that's we have only so much sand left in that hourglass. Where the humans are on the way out. I know a lot of people hate it when Peter Thiel says it. Like, Peter Thiel is a terrible person. He's evil. Do
you think he is?
No. I think he's just telling you the truth.
I need that
I think
on.
he's, you know, when they said, do you think human beings should survive? And he had like this long pause.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And then the
Very odd.
interviewer was like, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. You think human beings should-" Which is not how you're supposed to do an interview. Well, at least not how I do it. I would let him talk as long as he wants. Like, I would let... If you watch my podcast that I did with him, is these long ass stammers where he's like, everything he does, he wants to be very careful before he answers it. So he wants to consider what he's saying.
Oh, that's useful.
Sorry, which one do I think is most corrupt, or what?
No,
What
what about them? These when you said corrupt.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
man, it's.
So then Theo starts going off about Palantir and how Israel's using it in Gaza, and things get really awkward. Like, Joe, it seems like, does not want to talk about it, and he's like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? And then he asks Jamie about it, and Jamie doesn't want to say anything either. So Theo's like, all right, I'll move on now. But then he starts freaking out about how paranoid he is.
Baby.
Hello, Muffin. Should I put you guys on screen?
Hello. Oh, that's okay.
All right. Hello, Muffin.
Just for you.
Hi, baby girl.
No, you cannot have that. It's not legal for you. No.
What is it? Oh. Yay. Okay. Who are we talking about? Rogan? I don't know. I've never really watched much of his stand-up. Oh, so cutie. A cute pupper. Where's the big boy? Rover. You're muted. FYI. Yeah, okay, cool.
I figured.
Yeah.
Row your boat. Hey, buddy boy.
Hey, Rover. Oh, look at me get picked up. He's like, what is this? Why? Why am I being picked up?
Get your baby.
Big boy.
So cute.
He's
Thank
a
you.
big boy.
All right, get out of here.
Gone.
Go get.
Gone. Get.
It's about Palantir surveillance and how he thinks a Palantir drone might have taken out Charlie Kirk.
Well, it's sketchy times. I mean, the same company, that company Palantir, that was doing all that crazy stuff in in Gaza, and they were like, running
What were
all
they
the
doing?
all the drones and stuff like this, allegedly.
What are you talking about? What are you saying they did?
That they had were compiling data on people that were there, and they were operating a lot of the drones in the sky that also had weapons attached to them.
Okay, so you mean like facial recognition data?
Right.
Do they have that capability with drones, where they could just zoom around? Is this horseshit? It's real? Jamie's not even willing to talk on camera. He's
Okay.
just he's giving
I'll be
winks
quiet
and
then.
nods. I'm
But
sure
have-
they
but
do.
we have a
no,
big,
no.
They got a
listen.
big contract in America now, which is scary to me. That's what's scary to me.
Mhm.
That a drone could go by. That maybe that's what happened to Charlie Kirk. Who knows? Maybe a drone. You just have no who you can even point the finger at. A bullet comes out of the middle of nowhere.
True.
That's a kind of. I'm not saying
Let
I'm
me push-
paranoid
let me
about it
push
all the
back
time.
against that.
I'm
You're-
just saying I have.
Listen.
Okay. Sorry.
You're right. However, China's making and they're making really good ones. Way more sophisticated than our drones.
I think the thing that made me nervous was that same company, Palantir, got a deal in America to create a database and help with like surveillance and stuff. So that just makes me scared, and made me a little bit nervous. Not scared, but just like a little bit like, what's going on here? Are we going to enter a surveillance state?
Well, that's one of the arguments for letting chaos take place.
And also Theo brought up how TikTok is being bought and how he thinks they'll be censoring anti-Israel content now. So Joe also has to push back against that and defend Larry Ellison, who's buying it. Like, this is the most I've seen Rogan question what his guest is saying in a long time. It was wild. Like, also Theo talked about how social media companies are radicalizing people and they need to be held accountable, which Rogan told him is dangerous and will lead to censorship.
How are some of these companies not legally liable? Like, if you go to a restaurant, right?
Right.
And somebody poisons you, you could take something up with that restaurant.
Right.
If they poison a bunch of people, may be able to sue the restaurant or have some recourse against that restaurant, the food establishment. But these entities like these social media places, like, if they radicalize someone and they go shoot somebody or something, there's no like accountability for the company. It doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the company's not radicalizing people, and I think it's a real danger what
Damn,
you're saying
that was
because
close.
you know what you're saying is you're opening the door to
Almost
censorship.
died.
You're opening the door to the government saying we're here to protect you.
Well, for one, it feels like they're going to stop allowing TikTok. Like people are going to own it. I think they're selling it or something, so they
Dodgy
probably won't be able to
indeed.
show stuff like that anymore.
Well, they sold it to Larry Ellison's company, right? Isn't that who bought TikTok? Yeah, I want to be sure
but
about
do you
this.
think they'll do that so they can limit its control, like control what
Well, I
goes
think
on it?
the real worry that they had before that sale was that China was in control of it, and I think they're right. And I think that if you have a foreign country.
Then at the end of this podcast, they're talking about deportations and ICE, and Theo kind of freaked out about how he thinks the government is failing people, which of course, it seems like him and Rogan never will directly call out Trump. I mean, it seems like they're scared to. They'll be like, man, the government, the elected officials, but they'll never say Trump or Trump's administration and call him out directly. But it seems like Theo's kind of on the verge of that. Like, he's just about to snap and completely turn on him.
The problem is cartel people and the whole congressional seats thing. That's the problem.
Well, these people have become pawns. They'll send information to the countries that they live in and get them to come. It's like,
listen, if the population, you're right. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I don't even know probably what I was saying, but I don't know.
If the population,
we're
increasing
better than this. That's what I'm saying. We're better than this.
You and I are.
Yes.
Yeah.
As people, we are better than this, and we have all this elected officials and these people that we thought were like
Manipulative
us.
sociopaths.
When does that end?
That's a good question.
And can it end? Do you think there's a way to end it?
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, so Rogan has to be like the adult and try to calm him down, but his solution is AI taking over, which I think is probably only making Theo feel more anxious. Like, Rogan was trying to calm him down during this podcast, but he's like, humans are going extinct, AI's taking over, that's the future. So Theo was just losing it. And Rogan said he's been reaching out to him, but it's weird. He says off air, Theo hates talking about personal stuff and his feelings, but then once he gets on a podcast, he completely opens up.
Look, I love you very much, and I was trying to reach out because the last thing you want is a friend that maybe is going through some shit, not doing well, and maybe you could have reached out and you
Please
didn't.
assure me our liberty is not now in the hands of Rogan and Theo Von. I don't think it is, but
you could have
damn.
helped your friend and you didn't help your friend.
Like, he's lost a lot of popularity.
You have a hard time expressing yourself in person sometimes. Like sometimes I'd be asking like well, tell me what's up. Tell me what's bothering you. You know, tell me, like, how do you feel? What'd you do? And there's like a thing where it's almost like a blockade where you'd rather just like ignore it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when you're talking publicly, you like to address everything, which I find very interesting. It's like you almost feel more comfortable exposing various parts of things that you don't like about life or your life or what's bothering you about life. Publicly, you're better at doing that than you are privately with your friends.
So things continue to get even crazier for the Rogan sphere. And like also Tim Dillon has completely turned on Trump now and is directly calling him out. And it seems like Theo will probably be next. Also, Tim and Theo both call out Palantir, which Rogan obviously isn't happy about. But it seems like he's losing his influence. You know, he doesn't have as much control over these comedians as he used to. So he's probably worried they could ruin his relationship with Musk or Thiel. But let me know what you guys think about it. And if you want to hear more about Theo's downward spiral and him bombing his Netflix taping, or William Montgomery recently bombing at a comedy show, which was absolutely hilarious, make sure you check out the Patreon. And
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. What else we got to watch, guys? Oh, Tiny's done.
I feel like Neil deGrasse Tyson has a sign in his yard that says Black Lives Are Matter.
That's funny.
I feel like Neil.
I'd love to watch stuff about stars, some physics, yes. Let's see. Let's find a good topic. I like neutron stars. It's a fun topic. You're like, hey, don't watch this interesting physics video about neutron stars. Instead, put on this fucking lecture by Peter Thiel. What? Why? It's not more interesting. Not to me.
The buildup of magnetic energy within a star leads to a massive solar flare, lashing outwards into the cold of space. A distant supergiant begins to fuse iron within its core, setting off a chain reaction that will tear it apart completely in a spectacular hypernova. And pressure builds up within a rapidly spinning magnetar, causing a starquake on its surface that releases a super-powered gamma-ray burst. These are all examples of cosmic tipping points, moments when the universe snaps. The material that makes the planets, stars, galaxies, and even ourselves may appear stable, but it all teeters on a delicate tightrope. From the tiniest atom to the largest supercluster, push anything beyond a critical tipping point, and chaos ensues. Yet there is
It's
often
still
salvation.
interesting
Almost
subject
always,
matter.
some
I
subatomic
don't care if
safety net
he's
kicks
reading
in
from
to
the
wrestle back
Wikipedia.
stability and prevent complete destruction. A way for Jekyll to keep Hyde in check. And nowhere is this more true than inside
It's
neutron
not for
stars.
me. It's for y'all to learn. Or I could just talk about neutron stars.
Final barrier before cosmic oblivion. The most extreme object possible within space and time. Tiny, incomprehensibly heavy dead stars that spin at dizzying speeds, their very existence strains the laws of physics. The gravity on their surfaces is so strong that mountains can only form fractions of a millimeter high. And if you...
What do you want to know about neutron stars? I'll tell you. How many types of stars are there? Off the top of my head. There's like, I think there's like 8 main sequence stars. Why does it spin? Not all neutron stars spin. Are you talking about a magnetar? I feel so tired to say. What did he post? Oh my god, that's so funny. Was discovered the oldest light in the universe they thought was bird poop? That's interesting. More stars.
If you drop something, it would reach half the speed of light before it hit the ground. And yet somehow, they only get more extreme as we explore deeper, and the bizarre secret of what dwells in their center, where matter is put under pressures seen nowhere else in the cosmos, may even force us to rethink what we understand about the universe itself. They are the ultimate physics experiments, forcing ordinary matter into extraordinary situations that teeter on the edge of oblivion. To understand the interior...
All about that Chandra Sekhar. And then, I always forget the name of this. Tolkman Koff? Is that what it is? Let me find it again. It's 3 names and I can never remember them. Oh my gosh. The Tolman Oppenheimer Volkov limit. That's it. TOV limit.
of neutron stars is to understand the true nature of reality. And so, just how far can you push the universe before it breaks? Four years ago, I started the entire history of the universe with a simple roadmap of the first 7 or 8 videos, all within the first second of existence. And this month, we hit 1 million subscribers and have since covered 13.8 billion years and beyond. It's been amazing to see it grow and hugely gratifying to see such a big appetite for our universe out there.
It's going to be
What would your passion project be? Whether you want to create documentaries, a podcast, a company that sells services, or a brand that sells products, Squarespace can help. Squarespace is super simple to use and easily allows you to build a totally unique online presence for your project. Their design tools are cutting edge, featuring a huge library of professionally designed and award-winning templates, customizable with easy drag-and-drop editing. The different style options are excellent. Indeed, Squarespace is known for creating visually stunning websites in very little time. Their analytics tools are also great. You can review website traffic and easily learn where to focus engagement. And their automated email campaigns can help you stay connected and grow the community that loves your project, whatever it is. So head over to squarespace.com/history of the universe to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code history of the universe and get started on your passion project. What are stars made of? It is Christmas Eve, 2024. For those of us on Earth and knee-deep in merriment, the Parker Solar Probe is shattering records. Hurtling through space at a staggering 200 kilometers per second, it swoops to within 6 million kilometers of the sweltering solar surface. It is the closest any human-made object has ever dared to venture to our sun. 6 million kilometers may sound a long way, but it's enough to place Parker inside the sun's outer atmosphere, a wispy, gossamer layer known as the corona. It is from here that the sun launches its tirade of coronal mass ejections, mountain-sized bombs of subatomic shrapnel that can cause widespread power cuts if they reach Earth and overwhelm our magnetic field. Drop below the corona, and you'll find a thin layer called the chromosphere, roughly 5,000 degrees Celsius, just before you reach the visible surface of the sun, the photosphere. The photosphere is constantly roiling and churning as superhot material bubbles up from the cauldron below. It is an arresting image, but to truly understand this bizarre alien environment, what it's actually made of, and indeed what the interior of our own sun means for the mysterious cause of neutron stars, we have to go back in time more than a century before the Parker Solar Probe was even conceived of. To Calcutta, India. Lord Curzon sits hunched over a map of southern Asia, his sweat dripping onto archipelagos and peninsulas. As Viceroy of India in 1905, he's the director.
I'll play that when I end the YouTube stream, because that'll probably be copyrighted content.
Representative of the British Crown in this part of its sprawling empire, and he has a growing problem. Bengali and Indian nationalists are becoming increasingly vocal with their dissent against the British Raj. Curzon's eventual solution to partition Bengal along religious lines, creating West Bengal for Hindus and East Bengal for Muslims. It is a disastrous move, only serving to swell levels of discontent, leading to boycotts of British produce. And among those affected is teenager Meghnad Saha. Born to a poor family in Dhaka, now part of Bangladesh, he'd earned a full scholarship to the British-run Dhaka Collegiate School, but was expelled due to his participation in these protests. The episode obviously had a profound impact on Saha as he remained actively involved in politics for the rest of his life, an avid champion of Indian independence. But Saha's expulsion was only a temporary setback in a flourishing academic career, and by 1923 he'd become a professor at the University of Allahabad. And today, he is most famous for his work on the Saha ionization equation, thanks to which astronomers can take the local temperature and pressure and calculate how much of different parts of our sun is ionized, and therefore what state of matter they are made up of. In physics, ionization is the process of destroying atoms, pushing them beyond a tipping point. In the most simplistic depiction of an atom, negatively charged particles called electrons orbit around a central, positively charged nucleus. Although far from a perfect analogy, you can think of this as similar to planets orbiting around the sun. Whole atoms are electrically neutral, with the opposite electric charges of the electrons and the nucleus cancelling each other out. These opposite charges also provide an attractive force that keeps the electrons in orbit. Give these electrons an energy boost, however, perhaps by raising the temperature, and they suddenly have enough energy to break free from their subatomic shackles. Like India breaking away from colonial rule, the electrons have declared their independence. In the language of physicists, the material has been ionized. The result is an electrically charged soup of electrons and atomic nuclei, known as a plasma. We learn at school about 3 states of matter: solids, liquids, and gases. But there are more, and plasma is just one of those that we will encounter on our journey into the center of neutron stars. And so the Saha ionization equation tells us that despite a temperature of around 5,500 degrees Celsius, the photosphere of the sun is actually not hot enough to rip electrons away from every atom. Instead, the photosphere is only partially ionized, a mixture of hot gas and plasma. We have to dive deeper to find a region where plasma truly rules supreme, a place where temperatures rise to at least 10,000 degrees Celsius. By the time we reach the inner quarter of the sun, we have entered its core, and it's hard to do justice to just what an extreme and extremely dense environment we've now crossed into. The sheer weight of all the layers above crush down on the center of the sun with unimaginable force. The plasma is squeezed together to such a degree that the density climbs to 150 grams per cubic centimeter. That's nearly 8 times denser than gold, despite the core largely being made of ionized hydrogen, the lightest element in the universe. If you were to fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool with core material, it would weigh more than the Titanic, complete with all its passengers and cargo. Of course, if gravity had its way, the sun's core would buckle under the strain of this incredible pressure and collapse. But it doesn't, and instead, the sun will stay stable for many billions of years, carefully walking an invisible, internal tightrope. And so if gravity is the astronomical equivalent of a destructive Mr. Hyde, then what plays the counterbalancing role of Dr. Jekyll? What keeps the sun from crossing its tipping point? In the sun's core, hydrogen is squeezed so tightly that it fuses into helium. Every single second, 620 million tons of hydrogen disappear and 616 tons of helium emerge. The missing mass is converted into energy, meaning the sun generates the equivalent of 4 million tons of sunshine every second. Yet the sun is so dense that it takes an average 170,000 years for this light to battle its way to the solar surface. And it is the outward pressure generated by this nuclear energy, along with the searing heat of the core, that prevents the sun from collapse. This delicate balancing act between outward pressure and inward gravity is known as hydrostatic equilibrium. Physicists and astronomers calculate it using something known as the equation of state. It describes the intimate interplay between temperature, pressure, and the density of material in the various layers of a star. A softer equation of state makes the core more compressible. A harder one offers up a greater resistance to gravity. Remember these. Equations of state will become a central pillar in our quest to understand the inner workings of neutron stars. Remarkably, astronomers know the equation of state in the core of the sun to a very high level of accuracy, even though they can't see the core or get anywhere near it. And it is one particularly elusive type of subatomic particle that offers up invaluable assistance in this effort: the neutrino. The sun's core produces prodigious amounts of neutrinos as a direct byproduct of fusing hydrogen into helium, a staggering 179 trillion every second. They pour out of the sun and spread far into the solar system. Indeed, hold your hand up to the sun and the number of solar neutrinos that stream through your thumbnail in a single second is higher than the number of people on Earth. The total number of neutrinos that will pass through your body over the course of your life is roughly equal to the number of stars in the entire observable universe. But the number of neutrinos produced in the sun's core is remarkably sensitive to the local equation of state and temperature in particular. Tweak the temperature within the sun even slightly, and the number of neutrinos swings dramatically, making solar neutrinos the perfect thermometer for measuring the temperature of the sun's core, a whopping 15.7 million degrees Celsius. Understanding the sun in this way is vital work, with far-reaching consequences. Indeed, the sun is by far our nearest star, some 265,000 times closer than the next. This means that astronomers use the sun and its equation of state as a benchmark for all the other stars in the universe. And so it is the ideal starting point for understanding how the equation of state changes when stars die. For the sun may walk the tightrope of hydrostatic equilibrium for billions of years, but nothing lasts forever, even stars. Eventually, the sun will exhaust the fuel in its core, and those nuclear reactions will cease for good. With Hyde trumping Jekyll, at least temporarily, what happens next is guaranteed to be spectacular. And in some stars, these spectacles of destruction lead to the creation of something truly bizarre.
Neutrinos are super interesting.
Acrid black smoke billows as seawater surges through every part of the ship. It takes just 2 minutes for the 12,000-ton French battleship to sink beneath the waves.
Very difficult.
The sinking of the Bouvet on the 18th of March 1915 marked the start of one of the worst Allied defeats of the First World War. The battleship was part of a fleet tasked with sailing down the Dardanelles Strait, one of the narrowest in the world. The plan was to lay siege to Constantinople, now Istanbul, and force the Ottoman Empire, a key German ally, out of the war. Yet the sinking of these 3 ships, including the Bouvet, left Allied naval commanders with little choice but to turn and run. A new plan was hatched to stage a series of amphibious landings and take the peninsula on foot. Over 500,000 Allied soldiers would land on the coastlines around the Dardanelles. 57,000 of them would never make it home. And among those seriously wounded at Gallipoli was 26-year-old Royal Marine Artillery officer Lieutenant Ralph Fowler, who took a bullet to the shoulder. While that Turkish bullet did little to change the course of the First World War, it ended up playing a pivotal part in changing the way we would come to understand how massive stars change into neutron stars when they die. Before the war, Fowler had been a mathematician at Cambridge, yet it was while convalescing from his shoulder wound that he met Army captain and biophysicist Archibald Hill. Had Fowler not been shot, it's unlikely the two men's paths would ever have crossed. Hill recruited Fowler into his notorious team of scientists and engineers, which came to be known as Hill's Brigands. Other members of the ragtag bunch included Charles Darwin's son, Horace, and Arthur Milne. As part of the Brigands, Fowler made such significant contributions to anti-aircraft ballistics that he was made an officer of the British Empire in 1918. More than that, though, Fowler's work inspired him to turn his attention away from pure mathematics and towards physics. And his ensuing discoveries would become so important that, upon his eventual death in 1944, Indian astrophysicist Subramanian Chandrasekhar would write, "His work, characterized by a rare combination of physical insight and mathematical precision, shows what theoretical astrophysics at its best can be." In fact, Chandrasekhar would later win the Nobel Prize for a discovery that would have been impossible without the groundwork laid down by Ralph
Chandrasekhar limit.
Fowler, a discovery that revealed that one of a star's many tipping points in actual fact can be breached, with particles placed onto a new and even more precarious subatomic tightrope. Fowler and Chandrasekhar's discoveries were centered on the inner workings of a peculiar type of star. Look up at the winter night sky from the northern hemisphere, and one star in particular will instantly grab your attention. Not only is it the brightest, but it twinkles violently through a wide range of vivid colours. Its name is Sirius, the dog star, and has reached far and wide across human culture. Indeed, it is the source of the phrase, "the dog days are over," which traces its origin back to Roman times. The dog days end in July, when Sirius starts rising with the sun, and so disappears from the night sky. But Sirius is not a lone wolf. It has a companion, referred to as the pup, with the two stars pirouetting around one another every half a century. In the years following the First World War, the true nature of the pup was a confounding mystery. For one thing, this star was smaller than the Earth, but somehow still hotter than the Sun. In 1922, Wilhelm Jacob Luyten gave these exotic objects a name: white dwarfs. What could they be made of? One thing was clear: to pack a star's worth of material into the space usually occupied by a planet, white dwarfs must be extremely dense. Indeed, each cubic meter tips the scales at 1 billion kilograms. A sugar cube of white dwarf material weighs as much as an elephant. A shipping container's worth matches the mass of the Great Pyramid at Giza. By all rights, something so dense should buckle and collapse. In the Sun, it is the outward thermal pressure that resists the inward pull of gravity. Yet in a much denser white dwarf, this pressure alone would not be strong enough to shore up the star. What else could be keeping Hyde from the door and stopping the pup from falling in on itself? It would be Ralph Fowler who provided the answer, alongside two Arthurs, fellow Hill brigand Arthur Milne and legendary astronomer Arthur Eddington. It turned out the matter inside white dwarfs is degenerate, a cutting-edge concept back in the 1920s. Indeed, that decade may be most famous for the roaring of jazz, flapper girls, prohibition and speakeasies, but it was also an amazingly fertile time for new physics. Physicists were just getting to grips with the implications of a revolutionary new branch of science, quantum mechanics. For the 1920s was also the decade of Schrödinger, Heisenberg, Bohr, and Pauli, and it is the latter's exclusion principle that lies at the heart of degenerate matter and the secret of what white dwarfs, and in turn neutron stars, are made of. Quantum mechanics gets its name from the fact that in the atomic world only certain quantities are allowed. Subatomic particles, for example, are only allowed to have certain energies. Those that share the same energy must have some other property to distinguish them so that no two particles are ever completely identical. There are only so many alternative properties that they can have, meaning space within each permitted level of energy is limited. And to see how this works in practice, picture the Chrysler Building in New York. Imagine that each floor of the skyscraper represents one of the energy levels that particles are permitted to have in the quantum world. Crucially, like real skyscrapers, each floor has a maximum capacity that it's legally allowed to hold. Anyone else who subsequently tries to get in is excluded, hence why it's called an exclusion principle. Inside the Sun, for example, particles are spread out enough to never trouble the maximum capacity limits. Yet when material is crushed down into the extreme densities found inside white dwarfs, the situation changes. Quickly, the ground floor fills up, then the first and the second. No matter how hard gravity tries to squeeze more particles down into these lower floors, the rules of quantum physics forbid it. And it is this that offers up a formidable resistance to the inward pull of gravity, and it is this we call degeneracy pressure. This was Fowler's big insight, one he has arguably not recognized widely enough for today, his relatively early death meaning he never received the Nobel Prize that he most likely deserved. Today, we know that white dwarfs form when stars like the Sun die. After death, half the mass of the star ends up crushed to extreme densities, forming a white dwarf. The other half is shed like a snake's skin, puffing out into an intricate and spectacular cloud called a planetary nebula. Indeed, this is the fate that awaits our own Sun in around 7 billion years' time. But for the most massive stars, however, an entirely different fate awaits. Let's return to the night sky. If you start at Sirius and move up and to the right, you'll soon stumble upon the famous trio of stars that makes up Orion's belt. Continue along the same line, and before long, you'll hit a group of stars that resemble the letter V. You've arrived at the Hyades cluster, a group of stars that represents the head of Taurus, the bull. The animal's horns begin to protrude from the top of each prong of the V, and at the top of the left horn, close to the star Zeta Tauri, lies the Crab Nebula, one of the most famous clouds of gas and dust in the sky. The Crab is a supernova remnant, the smoked-out ruins of a once mighty star. In 1054, Chinese astronomers wrote of the appearance of a brand new star in the sky, a guest star. It was visible during the day for nearly a month and took 2 long years to fade from the night sky. To label these events as merely super is to do them a major disservice. Indeed, in just a few seconds, a supernova emits more energy than the Sun will in its entire multi-billion-year existence. Nor are they particularly rare. Supernova is thought to detonate somewhere in the universe every 10 seconds, meaning more than 100 have exploded since you started watching this video. Yet it's what lies at the heart of the Crab Nebula that is arguably even more impressive. A neutron star. If white dwarfs seem incredulously dense, neutron stars are 100 million times denser still. A mere tablespoon of neutron star material weighs more than the combined mass of all 108 billion humans who have ever lived. If white dwarfs are similar in size to the Earth, neutron stars are the size of cities. The neutron star at the heart of the Crab is just 21 kilometers across. That makes it about the same size as London and significantly narrower than Tokyo. More than a sun's worth of mass living cheek by jowl in unimaginably cramped quarters.
She did do that.
The gravitational pull of a neutron star is understandably immense. To beat gravity and power away from the Earth, you need to travel at a speed of 11 kilometers per second. The equivalent escape velocity of a neutron star is 150,000 kilometers per second, or about half the speed of light. On Earth, gravity is feeble enough to allow mountains like Everest to tower to almost 9 kilometers above the surface. On a neutron star, however, the tallest mountains are less than a millimeter high, making them some of the smoothest objects in the universe. They also spin at dizzying speeds, with the Crab's neutron star rotating 30 times a second. And mass wasn't the only thing concentrated down when the original star went supernova. Its magnetic field was too. A typical neutron star has a magnetic field that's 100 billion times stronger than a fridge magnet's. This often corrals beams of radiation that surge from the neutron star's poles. When Earth is hit by volley after volley of this radiation, we hear a series of pulses. So we also call these objects pulsars, the fudging together of the words pulsating and star. Chandrasekhar's great discovery was to show that Fowler's degeneracy pressure can only support a white dwarf up to a maximum mass of 1.4 suns. If the core of a dying star reaches this tipping point, Jekyll loses yet more ground to hide. The ensuing collapse forces electrons and protons to merge into neutrons, and a neutron star is born. But neutrons also obey the Pauli exclusion principle, meaning no two neutrons can share the exact same quantum properties. Again, this limits the capacity of each energy level. Once a level is full, even gravity cannot contract the star any further. This neutron degeneracy pressure catches the neutron star. It is the only thing keeping a neutron star teetering a few tens of kilometers from oblivion. From the name, you'd be forgiven for thinking that these enigmatic objects are 100% neutrons. They are not. What's more, the deeper down you go, the more and more mysterious the ingredients to be found there become. Just as with our own sun, the surface only hints at the extremes within. Our journey to understand the true inner workings of neutron stars is really only just beginning. And one of the biggest recent clues came from a neutron star that shouldn't even exist. There's a reassuring click as the astronaut's helmet clips firmly into place. With their spacesuit now sealed, it's on with the backpack that will be their lungs for the next 6 hours. The airlock opens and they glide out into the inky void, only to be hit by a cacophony of color. The bluest blue is etched with shades of green, yellow and white. The Earth is a magnificent marble floating in the empty black ocean of space. But there's little time to take in the view. One of the many instruments bolted to the exterior of the International Space Station is faulty. NASA recently couriered up a repair kit on one of the ISS's regular supply runs. Now, it must be painstakingly fitted by hand. The experiment in question is a washing machine-sized X-ray telescope called the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer, or NISA for short. Its thermal shields are 500 times thinner than a human hair and were damaged in May 2023 with the biggest hole the size of a postage stamp. Excess sunlight was spilling onto the telescope, damaging its ability to peer at distant neutron stars. Of course, NISA was never designed to be serviced or repaired in orbit, so its eventual repair in January 2025 proved to be an audacious feat of engineering. Astronomers were desperate to get NISA back to work because before it was damaged, it was starting to provide tantalizing clues about what's really going on deep inside neutron stars. And so to uncover what NISA has found so far, we need to take a journey down through a neutron star's many layers. Hovering above a neutron star's surface sits an atmosphere of hydrogen and helium just 10 centimeters thick. It has a density similar to diamond and is superheated to a temperature of around 2 million degrees Celsius. By the time we reach the crust below, the pressure is so high that electrons are stripped away from atomic nuclei, leaving behind an ionized sea of electrons, protons, and neutrons. The immense forces at work inside a neutron star's crust twist and distort the protons and neutrons into strange and exotic structures not seen anywhere else in the universe. Physicists call the resulting material nuclear pasta. Though its existence remains theoretical, the result of highly detailed computer simulations of matter under extreme duress. Indeed, if it does exist, nuclear pasta would be the strongest material in the universe, some 10 billion times stronger than steel. According to those simulations, nuclear pasta comes in a range of forms, each named after a different type of the Italian foodstuff. Near the surface of a neutron star, the protons and neutrons take on a bubble-like structure that astronomers refer to as gnocchi, after the roundish potato pasta dumplings. As we dive deeper into the neutron star, the pressure climbs, and the gnocchi stretch out into shapes resembling spaghetti. Drop deeper still, and the spaghetti are squashed into sheets of lasagna. Taken together, these nuclear pasta layers are just 100 meters thick, yet they weigh more than 3,000 Earths. Astronomers thought that they understood the structure of neutron stars fairly well, but back in 2019, the universe threw them a curveball. The most massive neutron stars are supposed to be the smallest. More mass means stronger gravity and a greater ability to crush the star's material into a smaller space. Except this wasn't the case when astronomers used NISA to observe a neutron star known as J0740 plus 6620. They quickly realized that it was one of the most massive neutron stars they had ever found, tipping the scales at just over twice the mass of the Sun, so it followed that it should also be one of the smallest. But it wasn't. J0740 is the same size as other neutron stars with only 2/3 of its mass, and so it quickly became the source of immense debate. The star made no sense. One possible explanation is that astronomers have been using the wrong equation of state. Unlike with the Sun, it's a lot harder to pin down the correct equation of state for neutron stars. There are hundreds of different possibilities to choose from, and detailed observations of neutron stars are harder to come by. Nor can we replicate their extreme pressures and temperatures here on Earth. This means that J0740 could help narrow down the field of possible equations of state, especially as its large size hints that its interior may be less compressible, or squishy, as astronomers tend to say, than they had previously thought. But alternatively, and most interestingly, the lack of expected squishiness could come from further down. Because the mystery surrounding J0740 has forced astronomers to re-examine what might exist deep in the core of a neutron star, below the layers of super-strong nuclear pasta. Before the fuss surrounding J0740, the leading idea was that the core of a neutron star is home to a quark soup. Protons and neutrons are not fundamental particles, but are instead each made of three components called quarks. As the pressure intensifies towards the core of a neutron star, the idea was that protons and neutrons would be prized open and disassembled into their constituents.
Yeah, but the more you try to pull quarks apart, the stronger their bond gets.
Quarks. But it takes energy to break the super-strong bonds that hold the quarks together inside protons and neutrons, meaning there would be less energy available to resist gravity. Indeed, that's why more massive neutron stars are supposed to be smaller. But as we've seen, J0740 showed astronomers that this wasn't always true. Particles called hyperons add further doubt. There are 6 types of quark in total, and protons and neutrons are only made up of 2 of them, up quarks and down quarks. The other 4 types are called top, bottom, strange, and charm. Hyperons are particles that contain strange quarks, but no top, bottom, or charm, but have such short lives that they disappear from experiments incredibly quickly, making them hard to study in detail. Some popular neutron star models argue that the intense temperature and pressure found in their cores could not only create hyperons, but also keep them stable for long periods of time. But there is a problem with this idea. The presence of hyperons should soften the equation of state, reducing its resistance to gravity. That would make the interior of a neutron star more squishy, not less. After the discovery of J0740, suddenly the idea of a neutron star's core being made of either a quark soup or strange quark containing hyperons was on increasingly shaky ground. But what would it mean if the quark soup idea was abandoned? If further studies continue to pour yet more cold water on the theory, what else could lurk in the heart of a neutron star? A big factor that the quark soup models don't usually account for is dark matter. Ever since the 1930s, astronomers have seen many situations where extra gravity is needed to make things make sense. For example, galaxies that spin or move too fast or that bend light too much. One explanation is that the universe is riddled with invisible material that acts as a gravitational glue. It was the Swiss-American astronomer Fritz Zwicky who first coined the term dark matter in a paper published in 1933, and the very next year he was also the first to propose the existence of neutron stars, alongside Walter Baade. And so if dark matter does exist, massive stars routinely plow through it as they move through space. Those stars would hoover up some of the dark matter, which then would sink to their cores. It would then remain there as the core transitioned into a neutron star as the star goes supernova. Indeed, studies have shown that adding some dark matter into the quark soup hardens a neutron star's equation of state. In
I
turn, that provides extra
routinely
resistance
plowed
against
your
gravity,
space last
explaining
night.
why J0740 isn't as small as originally expected.
Oh, thank you, Aurora.
But that is just a mild tweak to the quark soup idea. There is another theory that dispenses with it
So
entirely.
sweet.
One that also traces its origins back to early 20th century India,
So
to a man who worked alongside Meghnad Saha at the University of Calcutta. His name was Sachendra Nath Bose. Born on New Year's Day, 1894, Bose was a self-proclaimed
Of the
perfectionist with a
Bose-Einstein
penchant for the portrait of
condensate
Tennyson. He could have chosen any one of an array of subjects, but chose the path of science, seeing it as a way to boost his country's future prosperity. The best place to study science in India was at Presidency College in Calcutta, and Bose secured one of the coveted 32 places, despite there being 2,000
I never
applicants.
got the whole
Several years
serial
later, Bose
killer
began collaborating with
craze.
Saha.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's interesting to like get into the psychology of people like that, I guess.
Yeah, but neutrino stars are more fun.
You mean neutron stars?
Yes, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. I've had wine.
That's fine. Neutrino star would be a very interesting, yet I'm pretty sure physically impossible concept, but it would be super interesting. Cool thing about neutrinos is, well, there's a lot of cool things about neutrinos, but they're notoriously difficult to detect. I mean, now we've gotten decently good at it, but they very rarely interact with normal matter, so, yeah. And they're very fast, too. Some of the experiments regarding retrocausality often involve like measuring the effects and pathways of neutrinos. It's interesting shit. Very interesting shit.
I took a very interesting shit this morning.
Interesting how?
Very interesting shape and smell.
Those are fun. Lovely.
Together, they translated Albert Einstein's papers on relativity from German to English so that they could be read by Indian students. By 1924, Bose had moved to Dhaka, the East Bengali city where Saha had grown up. And that year, Saha returned home to stay with Bose, the ensuing conversations leading Bose to develop new ideas about the behavior of certain subatomic particles. However, struggling to get his ideas published in English journals, Bose took a gamble and wrote to Einstein directly. Respected sir, I've ventured to send you the accompanying article for your perusal and opinion. I'm anxious to know what you think of it. It was a bold move, and one which paid off handsomely. Indeed, Einstein was so taken with Bose's insights that he translated them into German himself, and had them published in the prestigious academic journal. The work the two men would do together would become known as Bose-Einstein statistics, and quickly lead to the prediction of the existence of an entirely new state of matter, the Bose-Einstein condensate. Today, physicists divide subatomic particles into two camps. There are bosons, named after Bose, for example, photons of light, and fermions, named after the Italian-American physicist Enrico Fermi, for example, protons and electrons. What distinguishes them is a property called spin. The spin of bosons is always a whole number. By contrast, the spin of fermions is usually equal to a half. Crucially, this spin also has a direction associated with it, most commonly up or down. The Pauli exclusion principle that we've already encountered strictly applies to fermions. Two protons or neutrons, for example, cannot be in the same place at the same time. But in a Bose-Einstein condensate, however, all the bosons move together at the same speed, behaving as if they are one giant particle. If bosons pair up in the core of a neutron star with the spin of the two parallel to one another, that could harden the equation of state and provide an outward pressure against gravity. A new form of safety net that keeps Hyde from the door. And this has led some astronomers to suggest that the most massive neutron stars, those weighing at least two suns like J0740,
Bose-Einstein
condensate stars.
Which could make more sense than potentially a quark star. But quark stars are still a hypothetical reality, not a proven reality. There's a couple candidate objects, too.
Whatever it's made of, J0740 remains one of the most massive neutron stars ever discovered. But just how heavy can a neutron star get? And what happens if that mass is somehow exceeded? Is there another safety net to catch it?
Ah, here we go. You gonna talk about quark stars? Or is he just going to go straight to black holes?
Thud, thud, thud. With what little strength he has left after months of malnutrition, Mikhail Volkov swings an axe and hammers it into yet another tree trunk.
Tolman, Oppenheimer, Volkov limit. They're about to talk about it.
Admitting defeat and coming to rest on the hard, frozen ground. Volkov is imprisoned in one of Joseph Stalin's notorious gulags. Like millions of other Soviets, Volkov arrived at his Arctic prison in 1936 at the start of Stalin's Great Purge. He would never leave, dying there a few years later. But it needn't have been this way. In 1924, he'd left the Soviet Union for Canada with his young family in the hopes of a brighter future. However, struggling to find work in Canada, relatives had assured him that things weren't so bad in the Soviet Union after all. He returned, and his fate was sealed. Thankfully, though, he'd left his family behind. When Mikhail entered the Gulag in 1936, his son George was 22 and still living in North America. In fact, that very year, George became a graduate student at the University of California under the tutelage of the legendary physicist Robert Oppenheimer. The pair would later work together on the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb during the Second World War. However, it was for their earlier work, published 7 months before war broke out, that George Volkoff is most remembered today. Along with Richard Tolman, the pair calculated the maximum possible mass of a neutron star, known as the Tolman-Oppenheimer-Volkoff, or TOV, limit. Their initial calculations put this upper bound at just 70% of the sun's mass, a mere half of the Chandrasekhar limit for white dwarfs. However, astronomers now think that this was a severe underestimate. Indeed, the 1990s brought fresh calculations of a neutron star's equation of state, and with them, astronomers drastically revised the TOV limit upwards to between 2.2 and 2.9 solar masses.
Yeah, because I believe the TOV limit is above the Chandrasekhar limit.
But to narrow the limit down even further would require a thoroughly modern piece of technology. In the summer of 2017, the astronomical rumour mill went into overdrive. It all started when astronomer Craig Wheeler put out a cryptically worded tweet on the 18th of August. New LIGO source with optical counterpart. Blow your socks off. Internet sleuths scoured the public logs of major telescopes, finding that several of them had been hastily diverted to stare at the same galaxy, NGC 4993, 140 million light-years away. But it took 2 further months for astronomers to officially let the cat out of the bag. When Wheeler referred to LIGO, he was talking about the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory in the United States. For the day before Wheeler's tweet, it had picked up a signal for the history books. 2 neutron stars had collided in NGC 4993, and all hell had broken loose. 70 different observatories spread across all 7 continents and in space had picked up the after effects of this collision. For its part, LIGO detected the gravitational waves that
Oh, shit. Almost done.
washed up on our celestial shore. Just as swimmers, boats, and dolphins moving through water create waves, so objects moving through space create gravitational waves. They are ripples in the very fabric of space itself. This was the first time astronomers had detected gravitational waves from colliding neutron stars. The size and frequency of the waves shot up as the 2 stars death spiraled inwards and collided. Poring over the data, astronomers were able to rule out equations of state that were incompatible with the gravitational waves they observed. This allowed them to narrow down the TOV limit to between 2.01 and 2.17 solar masses, although even that's far from certain. For one thing, the most massive neutron star ever found, PSR J0952-0607, has a mass of 2.35 solar masses, seemingly breaching the proposed TOV limit. But as is often the case, the devil is in the details. The simplest TOV limit applies to neutron stars that don't rotate. However, most neutron stars do rotate, which would nudge the limit slightly higher. But what happened when these neutron stars came together?
Black
the
hole.
combined mass of the 2 neutron stars involved in the 2017 collision
2.8
was
solar
2.8
masses.
solar masses,
Okay.
within reach of the TOV limit.
But I thought they just said TOV limit was 2.9. That there's like a mass gap between the two.
When the total mass exceeds the TOV limit, even degeneracy pressure is not a strong enough safety net in the perpetual contest between Jekyll and Hyde. So what happens next? Is there another level of density before oblivion? That is still an area of fevered debate, and one really with only 2 possible outcomes. Yes or no. One theory is that when the neutrons are squeezed together, they burst into a sea of quarks, creating a quark star.
Quark star!
Calculations have shown that an object made of strange quarks is the most likely to be stable, so these objects are also sometimes known as strange stars. Fittingly perhaps, strange stars would have some rather odd properties. If 2 strange stars collided, they might produce quark nuggets, also known as
Strangelets.
strangelets. With masses between 100 grams and 100 kilograms, these clumps
And
of strange
strangelets
quark
are weird because they can convert regular matter into strange matter.
would be the astronomical equivalent of zombies. They would convert anything they touched into strange matter as well. Indeed, at one point, strangelets were even considered a candidate
boy
for the
knows his
mysterious
shit.
dark matter that seems to hold the universe together. While astronomers have never actually seen quark stars or quark nuggets, there are ways that they could reveal themselves. Experiments such as IceCube, located deep beneath the Antarctic permafrost, might be able to spot the subatomic shrapnel produced when quark nuggets strike the upper atmosphere. But if colliding neutron stars don't collapse into quark stars, then there really is only one other possible alternative. A black hole.
Yep.
A black hole is what you get when gravity breaches a star's last critical tipping point. Jekyll no longer has any way of keeping Hyde in check, and must, finally, admit defeat. The star's core collapses completely until everything is squeezed down into an infinitely small speck known as a singularity. And it is here that the very laws of physics break. Space and time cease to exist, and with them go our powers to describe what is happening. At least, that's the situation according to Einstein's general theory of relativity, our most lauded and well-tested theory of gravity. But general relativity isn't the only show in town. As we've seen, it's quantum mechanics that so beautifully describes how white dwarfs and neutron stars manage to stay one step away from oblivion. You can't just throw that theory out the window once 2 neutron stars collide. But the trouble is that general relativity and quantum mechanics are famously quarrelsome. The way they describe the universe is fundamentally incompatible, and both cannot be correct. One or both are likely to be mere approximations to a deeper, more sophisticated theory of quantum gravity. And so, which of the two is likely to blink first in this great game of cosmic chicken? Intriguingly,
Cosmic!
neutron stars.
Cosmic name dropped.
The 2017 collision, known as GW170817, was the first time that astronomers had seen gravitational waves and light emitted from the same celestial event. Picking up more than one type of signal from the same event like this is known as multi-messenger astronomy, and GW170817 was arguably its modern debut as an established astronomical tool. 2 seconds after the waves from GW170817 arrived, astronomers also spotted the searing flash of a gamma-ray burst in precisely the same patch of sky. The gap between the two signals tells astronomers how fast the gravitational waves hurtle towards us, and the 2-second gap was consistent with the speed predicted by general relativity and inconsistent with several other alternative theories of gravity, helping to rule them out. A triple star system, known as PSR J0337 plus 1715, provides yet another test. This unusual system contains a neutron star white dwarf pair that not only orbit each other, but together they both orbit another white dwarf. General relativity makes strong predictions about the shape of these entwined orbits, and so far it has passed all of these tests with flying colours. However, press most physicists and they'll venture that general relativity is more likely to break before quantum mechanics. Perhaps we haven't seen general relativity crack yet because we haven't seen it under extreme enough duress. Indeed, that's what makes the centre of neutron stars and finding the correct equation of state such a fertile hunting ground for new physics. Some theories of quantum gravity are only compatible with a limited range of equations of state. Rule out those equations of state, and you can put a big red cross through their associated quantum gravity theories too. And astronomers may have made a big stride forward on this front in the summer of 2024. A team led by Alessio Marino, an astronomer at the Institute of Space Sciences in Barcelona, found a trio of neutron stars that are unexpectedly cold. A neutron star naturally cools down as it ages, either by directly losing heat to space or through an exodus of neutrinos that carries away some of its energy. The rate of this heat loss is directly governed by what's going on inside the neutron star and its equation of state. Marino and his team used the Chandra and XMM Newton space telescopes to study the X-rays produced by 3 different neutron stars. The hotter a neutron star, the more prodigiously it produces X-rays, and these 3 neutron stars turned out to be between 10 and 100 times cooler than other neutron stars of a similar age. This discrepancy was so drastic that it immediately ruled out 3/4 of all possible equations of state, several possible theories of quantum gravity disappearing with them. It just goes to show how crucial neutron stars are to our understanding of the universe. After all, they are the ultimate physics experiment, creating dizzying conditions that strain the very sinews of ordinary matter.
It is cooler than, to me than politics as
neutron
well.
Stars remain as
But
enigmatic,
unfortunately,
and important.
I mean, if I could always
as
do
ever.
science, I would, but you know, that's not what the homies
You've been
like.
watching
I
the
love,
entire
I
history
do
of the
love,
universe. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I do love both. It's true. All right, neighbor Rooney. He's so happy it's over. I am familiar with false vacuum decay. That is a potential. That is a potential doomsday, Armageddon for the universe, essentially. Yeah, there's not really any way to know it without the entire universe disappearing, so just kind of chill with what we got, I guess, and just hope it's not a real thing. Well, not the universe disappearing, but, you know, everything basically being reset in it. It'll still be around, but it'll be different. Well, I mean, like, we'd all be dead, though. Like, it's not a happy reset. Sad reset. What about some philosophy? Sure. What do you want to talk about? Pretty dark. I'm going to go with the latter. The lowest energy state is thought to be the vacuum, but if there were a lower energy state and somehow part of the vacuum were tipped into that lower energy state, it would propagate throughout the rest of the universe, essentially resetting the entire universe to that lower energy state, reconfiguring the bonds between atoms, and everything would, like, the fundamentals of physics would change across the entire universe. Rough shit. Not fun.
Martin Heidegger is one of the most influential and enigmatic of 20th century philosophers, and this is in part because of the fact that he writes in a particularly obscure style and is a philosopher that engages in many verbal tricks and maneuvers which are unique to Heidegger and to his project.
We lost Gringo. Okay.
And which somehow, to some extent, determine the outcome and form that his philosophical project takes. And it's worth encountering and thinking about Heidegger because he was the source of so many movements in 20th century intellectual life. Existentialism, in some respects, is a sort of godchild of Heidegger. Heidegger perhaps borrows some of the main ideas from Kierkegaard, but he's the one who reformulates many of these concerns in a 20th century idiom, which turns out to inform
Good
things
night,
like
buddy.
Sartre or Camus or Merleau.
Do you guys want to, or does Gringo want to jump on and say goodnight in the voice chat? No, Cosmic. This is the idea that there is a lower universal ground state.
Hey.
Hey, hang on. Go ahead and say goodnight to everybody.
Hi, everyone. I don't have the mental capacity for smart things tonight, and I've realized that, so I'm going to let you guys do your thing.
Okay, buddy. Well, we will see you next time.
At least you're honest.
But either way, actually, this is my bedtime, so.
Okay, well, sleep well. And I'll talk to you later. Theoretical lowest possible energy state of the entire universe.
And I'll be right back.
Okay.
Good night, chat. Neighbor Ernie, you are so mean, but our duel will shake the stars, and the world will never be the same.
Indeed. Cosmic. That is the actual issue with, well, not issue. That's like the proposed problem with a potentially different vacuum state. Because if there was a different vacuum state, you wouldn't have different vacuums press up against each other. The lower vacuum state would propagate across the entire universe because of, entropy. Don't fucking what? You don't even know. You didn't even know about this. Oh my god. Holy shit, that's so obnoxious. Like, it's a thing you don't even know about, and your response is what? How about you go look at vacuum state as the lowest ground state? Correct. The idea of a lower vacuum state is a proposed hypothesis for something that could end the universe if it exists. We're not saying it does exist. We're saying we cannot tell whether it exists, and it's a proposed Armageddon doomsday scenario for the universe. Universal ground state vacuum refers to the theoretical lowest possible energy state of the entire universe where all fields are constant uniform space-time. The concept is central to quantum field theory. Positive vacuum is not empty, but is filled with fields fluctuate and have energy. State of the universe may not be in its absolute lowest energy state, but in a false vacuum, situation where a transition to the true vacuum could drastically alter the laws of physics. It would not be observable. It's a universal. It's not just local, it's universal. False vacuum decay. This is where we are. If there were a high enough, energetic enough event in the universe, it could cause the vacuum to reset to the true lowest vacuum state, which would then propagate across the universe. That is if it exists, because we don't know. It's hypothetical. An energetic, an event with an energy that we have yet to observe. I think there are calculations on how big it would have to be. Let me look. Hang on. Light above is very low. 1 in 10 to the 868 power. General gravitation makes probability of vacuum decay smaller. Vacuum decay varieties. Electroweak vacuum decay. Stability criteria for the electroweak interaction was first formulated in 1979. Spontaneous decay? No, it's not spontaneous. It would have to be like there would have to be an event. Discovered the top court in 95, Higgs boson in 12 have allowed physicists to validate the criteria against experiment. Therefore, since 12, the electroweak interaction is considered as the most promising candidate for a metastable fundamental force, also known as pseudo-stable fundamental force. Corresponding false vacuum hypothesis is called either electroweak vacuum instability or Higgs vacuum instability. The present false vacuum state is called DS, de Sitter space, while tentative true vacuum is called ADS, anti-de Sitter space. Diagrams show the uncertainty ranges. Higgs boson and top quark masses as oval-shaped lines. Underlying colors indicate if the electroweak vacuum state is likely to be stable, merely long-lived, or completely unstable for given combination masses. The electroweak vacuum decay hypothesis was sometimes misreported as the Higgs boson ending the universe. A 125.18 plus or minus 0.16 gigaelectron volts over the speed of light squared. Higgs boson mass is likely to be on the metastable side of stable to metastable boundary. A definitive answer requires much more precise measurements of the top quark's pole mass. However, though improved measurement precision of Higgs boson and top quark masses further reinforce the claim of physical electroweak vacuum being in the metastable state as of 2018. Nonetheless, new physics beyond the standard model of particle physics could drastically change the stability landscape division lines, rendering previous stability and metastability criteria incorrect. Reanalysis of the 2016 LHC run data in 2022 has yielded a slightly lower top quark mass of 171.77 plus or minus 0.38 gigaelectron volts, close to vacuum stability line but still in the metastable zone. Measurements of the Higgs boson and top quarks suggest that our universe lies within a false vacuum of this kind. This would imply that the bubble's effects will propagate across the universe at nearly the speed of light from its origin in space-time. Direct calculation within the standard model of the lifetime of our vacuum state finds that it is greater than 10 to the 65 years with 95% confidence. Decay to smaller vacuum expectation value, resulting in decrease of Casimir effect and destabilization of protons. Decay to vacuum with larger neutrino mass may have happened as late as a few billion years ago. Decay to vacuum with no dark energy. Decay of the false vacuum at finite temperature was first observed in ferromagnetic superfluids of ultracold atoms. Bubble nucleation. This is the one that I see the most. When the false vacuum decays, the lower energy true vacuum forms through a process known as bubble nucleation. In this process, instanton effects cause a bubble containing the true vacuum to appear. The walls of the bubble, or domain walls, have a positive surface tension as energy is expanded as the fields roll over the potential barrier to the true vacuum. The former tends as the cube of the bubble's radius, while the latter is proportional to the square of its radius. So there is a critical size, RC, at which the total energy of the bubble is zero. Smaller bubbles tend to shrink, while larger bubbles tend to grow. To be able to nucleate, the bubble must overcome an energy barrier of height. Theta C equals 3. Is that upsilon? I don't know my Greek symbols very well. Over 4r to the 2 minus delta theta. Where delta theta is the difference in energy between the true... Is that theta? Or is that omega? Fuck me. Hang on. That is... phi. And then, yeah, that is upsilon. Where delta phi is the difference in energy between the true and false vacuums, upsilon is the unknown, possibly extremely large surface tension of the domain wall, and r is the radius of the bubble. Rewriting equation 1 gives the critical radius as radius c equals the square root of 3 upsilon over 4 delta phi. A bubble smaller than the critical size can overcome the potential barrier via quantum tunneling of instantons to lower energy states. For a large potential barrier, the tunneling rate per unit volume of space is given by... Oh, fuck. That is... psi. Psi is about equal to 1 over upsilon times the square root of 2 phi c over... Over what? Eta? Times e to the negative phi c over eta, where eta is the... It's gamma? That's gamma, or is this gamma? Or is this gamma? It has been a minute. Oh, that is gamma. Yep, you're right. I see which one it is, yeah. Upsilon just looks like a U in lowercase. Omega. This is omega. Okay. Omega is about equal to 1 over gamma times square root of 2 phi c over eta, right? That is eta. Times e to the negative phi c over eta. Flux is phi, the denom is gamma. H bar. Heisenberg's constant over 2 pi. Just Planck constant, yep. As soon as bubble of lower energy vacuum grows beyond the critical radius defined by equation 2, bubble's wall will begin to accelerate outward due to the typically large difference in energy between the false and true vacuums. Speed of the wall approaches the speed of light extremely quickly. Bubble does not produce any gravitational effects because the negative energy density of the bubble interior is cancelled out by the positive kinetic energy of the wall. Small bubbles of true vacuum can be inflated to critical size by providing energy, although required energy densities are several orders of magnitude larger than what is attained in any natural or artificial process. So that was what I was talking about. It's also thought that certain environments can catalyze bubble formation by lowering the potential barrier. Bubble wall has a finite thickness, depending on ratio between energy barrier and energy gain obtained by creating true vacuum. In the case when potential barrier height between true and false vacua is much smaller than energy difference between vacua, shell thickness become comparable with critical radius. Anyway, yeah. Bubble nucleation. Bubble nucleation. So yeah, that's that.
Ponty, and a whole variety of French and German thinkers in particular, who will be relatively inaccessible unless you look at Heidegger first. Now, Heidegger himself has a very interesting background which tells us a great deal about the sort of intellectual activity that he undertakes. In the first case, he starts out in his intellectual career as a Jesuit seminarian, which tells you a great deal about the cast of his mind, which tells you a great deal about his early intellectual habits. And much of this will have, influence later on. We will see it come out in a sort of transformation. I may be the only person that believes this, but I may not be, that growing up as a Jesuit seminarian definitely has telling effects later on in life. If you ever met me, I believe you will find this to be true. Well, Martin Heidegger is that in spades. And when he makes a philosophical move, it is absolute, and it is an attempt to go as far as a particular line of thought can take it, perhaps characteristic of that whole tradition. In addition to starting out as a seminarian, which is interesting in its own way, he wrote his doctoral dissertation on Duns Scotus. Now, any of you at home who have read some scholastic philosophy, who know who Duns Scotus is, know how difficult and recondite and intimidating, forbidding a doctoral dissertation like that is, and it indicates not only something of the cast of his mind, but also the intellectual ambition of someone who feels like he can cut the Gordian knot. I myself would never consider even reading, much less writing, a dissertation on Duns Scotus. So if someone is going to undertake a project like that, this is a person for whom very little is intellectually intimidating. Now, his first and perhaps greatest work, or the work that got him the most notice, was published in 1927. It's called Sein und Zeit, which means being and time. And he was a student of Husserl's, and it was published in Husserl's phenomenological yearbook, and it was dedicated to Edmund Husserl. So there's a definite, student-pupil relation, pupil-teacher relationship, and a sort of conceptual relationship between the phenomenology of Husserl and the phenomenological existentialism that Heidegger develops. Now, Heidegger himself claims not to be an existentialist, but in a historical rather than a conceptual sense, rather than in a philosophical sense, it's clear that he does influence people like Sartre or Camus. And despite his protestations, his influence has been greatest in the philosophy of existence, as opposed to his unique and somewhat idiomatic philosophical project of developing an ontology. Now, ontology goes back to the Greek term. I mean, maybe you've seen some of the lectures on Plato, and you know that ontology, the science of being, or the logos of being, statements about being, were one of the early philosophical attempts, one of the kind of foundational philosophical enterprises of the Greek tradition. And Heidegger wants to revive that enterprise, which is a particularly intimidating and I don't know, impressive intellectual ambition, regardless of whether he achieves it or not. To go back to the science of being, to go back to being itself with a capital B, well, I don't know if that's a persuasive or even a possible thing in the 20th century. The fact that Heidegger thinks that he can do that he wants to take that project seriously, is a tribute to his great intellectual ambition, regardless of how it ends up turning out. So he thinks of himself primarily as an ontologist. Now, this leads us to all kinds of difficulties. First of all, talking about being is like trying to bite your teeth. In other words, what can you say about being? How can we come to know being? What sort of procedure do you engage in to find out about being? Well, this maybe discloses his connection to Husserl. You're not going to find out about being by investigating tables individually and chairs individually and Christmas trees individually, or even inspecting the outside world for its regular law-like behavior. The way you're going to find out about being is some process of introspection. This is one of the things that holds the continental tradition together. They tend to be more concerned with that which is inside than they are about that which is outside. There is a decidedly anti-scientistic tendency to this, and I will come back to that problem. But what Heidegger wants to do is find out about being. And he's very familiar with Greek philosophy. As a matter of fact, he thinks that pretty much it's all been downhill since Aristotle. Right, that Christianity, the Romans, the Enlightenment didn't make much of a contribution to the history of thought. After Aristotle, it's all downhill, and the real high point was even before Plato, it was in the pre-Socratics. And what he wants to do is to force us back to the original sophisticated naivete of pre-Socratic thought, which is a very funny way of thinking about it, but he does think that we have actually decreased our understanding of ourselves and the world around us by bracketing or eliminating this problem of ontology, the problem of being, and instead investigating beings, particular elements in the world. So he wants to move away from that practical, concrete, tangible sort of inquiry into something a great deal more abstract and also more nebulous. Now, another thing to think about when we deal with Heidegger and his ontological hopes is what Plato said about being, and it's an interesting thought. Plato says in the Myth of the Cave, when he talks about the divided line, that being is not like the other beings in the world. And when we get up into the realm of the forms, being is like light that discloses the things in the world to us, but it is not one of those things that gets disclosed. So being allows us to know about the being, the small b being of tables and chairs and podiums and carpets and things like that. And we all have a kind of intuitive, everyday knowledge of what it means to say that the grass is green, or the podium is made of wood, or the cup is blue. All those uses of the word is, we kind of feel like we have an idea of what's going on there. But there's a problem. Even though we know these local and particular uses of the word is, we don't know what being is on the whole. We don't know what being capital B is, what it is that holds all these little beings together, the small b beings. And that's because being itself is not like any of the beings that being discloses. Are you following this so far? In other words, light is not like the objects that we see in the room. It's a unique kind of a thing. And here I just mean it metaphorically, because I don't know how to literally talk about this in any kind of sensible way. But the metaphor discloses the idea, roughly speaking, that somehow being is different from all the other stuff of our experience. Heidegger says that before we bother with trivialities like this particular entity or that particular entity, what we have to do is leave all that stuff out, in a way, bracket it for now, and let's talk about what it is to be, how we know being, what being tells us about itself. Now, the question is, how are we going to do this, and what is being? Well, in the first case, Heidegger does not want to have a conception of being which is abstract, formal. He wants to connect it to the experience of everyday life. And this is the kind of the Husserlian turn, or perhaps the whole continental turn. He says, think of it from the perspective of a human being, from your perspective now, rather than constructing a set of abstractions which later on you will use to tailor your experience of the world. Start now with your experience, and remove from your experience the things that are irrelevant, the dross, so that you get the pure gold of ontological knowledge later on. Now, the way in which he does this is to create a theory of what human existence is, and he calls this this human existence Dasein, which doesn't translate out of German.
Don't encourage him.
One of the things that Heidegger does all the time. Human being. What is it like to be a human being? Dasein is human being in the world. It is finite. It is contingent. It is uncertain. It is a collection of psychic states like worry, guilt, anxiety. And this constellation of human qualities or human entities is not like anything else in the world. It is the way in which, or the vehicle in which, the matrix in which being is disclosed to us. In other words, you can only find out what being is from the perspective or in the way that a human being finds out about what being is, and that's by being a human being. I know how, now can you see how this is going to get awfully circular and strange, and that we're going to have whole chapters and perhaps whole volumes of being talks to itself and projects itself into the future of being. You're going to get a lot of what appears to be circular reasoning on account of the fact that we're stuck within the internality, what I call the introcosm, and it's very hard to break out from the introcosm into the exocosm. It's one of the characteristic flaws, it's perhaps the Achilles heel of continental philosophy. So what we're going to do is investigate Dasein, investigate what it is to be a human being. And we're going to do that by being a human being. And we're going to do that in an authentic way. And what that means is that we have to remove our illusions and remove our distraction by the events, the little trivial events in the world. Focus yourself and turn inward. And what you will find is your true self and your true being. You will move from a pre-reflective state of inauthenticity, of concern with beings, small b beings, to an authentic state of concern with being itself. And apparently the only imperative, or from what I can discern in Heidegger, the only imperative that human beings have, the only thing left that we ought to do, that we somehow have a responsibility to do, is to authentically be. Capital B, to confront the reality of human life, despite the fact that we may find it unpleasant or difficult or trying. And it may well be that once we do that, we have moved to another level of experience and conceptualization of the world. And if that turns out to be the case, then he will have contributed something to our self-knowledge. And if you remember that I said that Heidegger wants us to drive us back to that pre-Socratic primordial kind of a state. And the Delphic oracle told Socrates and the rest of the Greeks that they must know themselves. Well, the continental project involves knowing yourself, turning inward, and finding out what it is like to be a human being. Now, when we look at Dasein, at human existence in its contingency and its finitude, we find that it has a threefold structure. One, and that structure is understanding, mood, and discourse. Now, understanding means that we have to accept Dasein as offering us, as creating a context. In other words, to be a human being is to contextualize the world around you and to attribute meanings to it, to organize the experiences that you have into a sort of a gestalt, a whole. And in order to be a human being, you have to contextualize the world. A second thing that's necessary for Dasein is mood. And here it means something kind of not unambiguous and fairly straightforward. Happiness, sadness, things like that. I mean, the psychic states of our moods. And think about this for a second. Can you imagine an Anglo-American empiricist telling us that one of the really important things you have to think about in the course of your philosophical development is the idea of mood? Very foreign to that scientistic approach to reality. Whereas for Heidegger, it's a fact of life. It is perhaps one of the facts of life which we only ignore at our peril, at the peril of abstracting and making inauthentic your conception of yourself and the world. And the third element in Dasein is the idea of discourse. Language is constitutive of Dasein. Things can be formulated in speech and can be understood, or things can only be understood when they are formulated in speech and then made subject to our moods. So everyday depoeticized language doesn't uncover Dasein. It numbs us, it makes us anesthetized to the true facts of being and causes us to be caught up with trivialities. Do any of you know T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets? Where he says that and it's not the hollow men, but some example of inauthenticity or inauthentic men are distracted from distraction by distraction. Isn't that a beautiful and lovely poetic line? Well, to a great extent, that's what Heidegger is driving us towards. He's saying, I'm calling you back to yourselves. I'm asking you not to be distracted from distraction by distraction. Do not let the little beings of the world deprive you of the big being. And may I suggest that the big being has an uncomfortably strong homology to God? Remember, he starts out as a German theologian. All right, give that some thought. All right, a Jesuit theologian. Well, this search after being, which is enigmatic and discloses itself in some very peculiar ways, may well be the depersonalized form of God in the 20th century. Now, Heidegger's stance towards being, I mean, to take this idea a little bit further, reminds me of the gospel story of the rich young man. rich young man who's very virtuous comes to Jesus and says, how do I really become good? How do I really become virtuous? And Jesus says, go sell all you have and follow me.
For someone who constantly uses the Picard facepalm meme, I'm very disappointed in that take. Very disappointed in that take.
Hey. Heidegger is saying something remarkably like that. He is saying, go, forsake all of beings with a small b, all the trivialities of your experience, and sell all you have and follow me. Not follow Heidegger, but follow being itself. Follow authenticity. It is the only obligation left for the conscious human being in the 20th century. This is a very closely sanded down version of theology, I suspect. Now, his great work, Being in Time,
Geordie
is
LaForge.
A very difficult piece of work because it wasn't all published in one whole chunk. He published it for various kind of academic contingencies in 27. And the idea behind it is that freedom has to be earned. It's not something you get given, it's something you work towards as a response to Dasein. And you earn your freedom. You become a human being. You make yourself by your confrontation with the real facts of human existence, of Dasein. And here are some of the parts. The first volume is a sort of hermeneutics of being. There are 2 volumes in Being in Time. And the first volume is an analysis of what we might call the unreflective state of being, of a man or a woman that's caught up with this being, small b, and that being, small b, that is still distracted from distraction by distraction. And the problem that he's going to raise is that we are lying to ourselves. We delude ourselves. We get ourselves all caught up with little things that really don't matter to us. And then we ignore what we really are. And God knows we are offered little enough in this Dasein, in this world of contingent finitude. And minimally, we have an obligation to ourselves to become what we can. Now, in this first volume, he analyzes this pre-reflective state before we actually connect or confront Dasein. And it turns out that the human being has 3 related aspects, or that Dasein has a threefold structure. And the first is facticity, in German Geworfenheit, to be thrown into the world. We didn't ask for this. Right? No one consulted us, before we were born or before we became conscious, asking us if we would like a kind of spatio-temporal world full of people and things and objects and questions and issues like that. We're stuck with it. This is not a disease, it's not a problem, it is what it is. You don't like it, that's tough. Deal with it. So facticity, the fact that we are cast into a world not of our own making, and that we busy ourselves with little irrelevant things, right? That's a given. The second element in existence is existentiality. And this idea entails appropriating the world for our own purposes. We take knowledge, we take objects, we take food, we take things of utility to us, and we manipulate them in practical ways. Right? Practical utility is a very pragmatic sense of how human beings interact with the world around them. And the final quality of human being, particularly this pre-reflective quality, is the quality of, in German it's Verfallen, but the best translation in English is probably something like forfeiture. There's something wrong with us. There's a sort of radical deprivation of the human condition as it starts. This is what gives Heidegger something to do. He wants to start with this pre-reflective, kind of unconscious human state and drive us towards consciousness of ourselves. He doesn't guarantee that this is going to be pretty. He doesn't guarantee that this is going to be easy. And he doesn't guarantee that this is going to be readily intelligible. But on the other hand, whatever it is you are engaged in that isn't that, relatively unimportant. What profiteth a man that he should gain the whole world and lose his soul? I think that this has at least 1 foot in Christian theology, and I think that many of the ideas of Heidegger's honest or authentic confrontation of being are philosophical, highly abstract Jesuit theology, de-theologized or de-divinized. You hold on to the structure, you leave the content, things are going to get very weird. All right. So we have facticity, existentiality, and forfeiture. This condition of being verfallen, of being caught up in a web of Maya, a web of illusions, the world of beings, this booming, buzzing confusion out there is essentially not real. Our reality is in being capital B, not in any of these trivialities, these distractions that we're forced to confront just from being a human being. If you always live your life in this condition of being verfallen, in this condition of forfeiture, you have forfeited your claim to being really human. To be human is to confront the world the way it is. It's to be a grown-up adult that is willing to deal with human
Good night,
life
neighbor.
as it
Yeah, I'm
is,
probably gonna
rather than
wrap
getting
things up in
distracted
a
or
little bit as
sidetracked
well.
by any of the various cul-de-sacs that life might offer us. And if you think about what this leads to, these men, or the vast majority of human beings apparently, are caught up in this inauthentic mode of existence. And that is the source in the 20th century of the thing called the mass man. Heidegger calls it das Man, but what it means is it's the opposite of being an individual. It's being a herd creature, not reflective, not thinking, not encountering the world on your own. And the best he can do, in perhaps the great tradition of German Romanticism, is to force us to become individuals. If you remember the great philosopher Kierkegaard, who is certainly one of the formative influences on Hegel, or on Heidegger, sorry, thank you. One of the formative influences, Kierkegaard wanted his tombstone to say Soren Kierkegaard and his date of birth and date of death. And then below that he wanted to say, that individual, which is a beautiful and profound epitaph. Well, what Heidegger calls upon us to do is to follow Kierkegaard, but to follow him in that respect in an individual way. You confront being on your own. Become what you might possibly be. You might also deserve to be called an individual if you work really hard at it. If you cultivate your inner life and you find some authentic confrontation with things that you'd rather not think about. And in volume 2 of Heidegger's work, we find that he does try and sketch out what an authentic being would be like, how we really confront Dasein, and what it will entail and what it will do for us. And in addition to
sip of the coffee.
He goes through the history of philosophy with considerable detail and in a very kind of idiomatic way. And the point of his going through the history of philosophy is to construct a philosophical history of ontology
and
to do a phenomenological destruction of prior conceptions of ontology so that he can clear the ground to erect his own new building, essentially. He says, I'm going to only hold on to the pre-Socratic legacy, most of Platonism, and some of Aristotle. But after Aristotle, it's all downhill. I don't want to talk about their conception of being or ontology. It's a waste of time.
They
we
had
have
glasses.
gone down an inauthentic cul-de-sac. Human beings, almost without exception, have not been authentic since we began to separate ourselves from being. In particular, he is concerned with Nietzsche's charge that it's not even possible to talk about being anymore. So we'll talk about that in a little later. But the idea is that Heidegger wants to force us back to an earlier, pristine state. This sounds remarkably like going back to the Garden of Eden. I could be mistaken. This condition of being verfallen sounds to me an awful lot like sin, and since it's so universal, it strikes to me as an awful lot like original sin, but I may be mistaken. Professor Heidegger tells us that it's not original sin. He explicitly says so, but I have my doubts. Well, we construct this phenomenological destruction of the history of ontology, and in its place, instead of looking at the world sub specie eternitatis, we're going to look at the world sub specie temporalis. In other words, we're going to look at human being the way it really is, rather than from the God's eye view. We're going to look at it from the human being's eye view, and we're going to find that the world discloses itself, and being discloses itself as a very peculiar matrix of things, most of which are not very pleasant. In the first case, if you wanted to really confront Dasein, what we get from Volume 2, you're going to have to get used to the idea of amor fati, or acceptance of fate, particularly acceptance of your own death. Death, anxiety, worry, care, fear are the main themes of Heidegger's second work, and this is the good side. Remember, this is the upside. You're better off with this, rather than dwelling on all the other things that might distract you from these businesses. And in addition, conscience is going to be an important element in this second volume. In other words, in order to come to our authentic being, in order to be truly human, which apparently so few people do, we must confront death, we must recognize that we have a conscience and it is ineliminable, and we must do what we can to sacrifice all else, to sell all we have, to follow being. Now, death is an interesting and important problem, and unlike most philosophers, Heidegger seems to be under the impression that he has some intelligent things to say about death. My personal feeling is that although death is a fearsome reality, and it is the kind of thing that a conscious person will inevitably at some point, or perhaps at all points, come into contact with and think about, having thought about it myself, I'm not able to think of or say anything intelligent about this topic. Perhaps you are. I apologize, but I'm not able to do that. There's not a lot you can say about death. On the other hand, Heidegger wants to talk about that as the horizon of human existence. If any of you have read Ernest Becker's book, The Denial of Death, that's a sort of popularization of one Heideggerian problem. We all try and persuade ourselves in all the everyday activities of life is that, that I'm going to last forever, I'm going to last forever, I'm going to last forever. The time goes on into an infinite horizon. Nay, that is being small b. You are lying to yourself. Nay. In fact, we all have to realize that time is not an infinite horizon. To view time as time sub 1, time sub 2, time sub 3, time sub n, going on forever, that's to view time from the perspective of God. That's also to view time from the perspective of our scientific friends. The only difficulty is that no human life experiences time like that. We experience it in a radically different way. We experience it as the horizon of our possibilities. So time is here to stay. Now can you see why he titles his book Being and Time? He wants to study being, and then he wants to study some essential foundational groundwork for the human experience of being. And that turns out to be the fact that we are temporal. Right? If you think of T.S. Eliot in The Rose Garden, time present and time past, right? It's surprising how T.S. Eliot is so overtly Christian, and this denies its Christianity, or it seems to be indifferent to it, but I think there are powerful Christian themes underlying this. So temporality, the fact that we must confront our own death, surely one of the great themes of Christianity as well, comes out as being the one imperative. I would almost be tempted to say that this demand made upon us by conscience, because one of the important elements in Volume 2 is that Heidegger talks about the human conscience. He says, look, you want to be a human being? Listen to your conscience, because there is a real thing. Conscience is one of the facts of human life. And you know what your conscience tells you to do? Sell all you have and follow me. Don't get caught up with little trivialities. Do not become distracted by beings. Search out the final, the real, the ultimate being. So conscience forces us into authenticity. Conscience accuses us of being inauthentic and being concerned with beings. And what he is, or what Heidegger thinks he is here, is the voice of conscience. To no small extent, he moves from being a philosopher to being a prophet with surprising agility. And when he calls you to be yourself, when he calls you to heed the voice of your own conscience, he sounds more like Jeremiah than he does Sartre, but I could be wrong here. Now, authenticity, this confrontation of our own finitude, is the one state that would actually redeem us, or would take us out of this pre-philosophical, not quite human state. And what this discloses is a number of important issues, but one of the most important of them is the idea of guilt and care and worry. And I would be inclined to say that, like Eliot, Heidegger thinks that the human condition is one of radical deprivation. We are not what we should be. We are not what we could be. And once we confront our own finitude, we confront the fact that we have obligations to ourselves which we can never meet. Let's think this through. In the first case, when we confront Dasein and we find ourselves in being, capital B, not just small b, the response on the part of the conscious agent is what is in German called Sorge, and in English that would be called care or worry or concern. And there are at least three things about which we are concerned, and here comes the temporal element. First case, we are concerned about the future, and that means that Dasein, conscious human being, projects itself into the future. Right? In other words, the way we experience the world, we experience ourselves not just here and now, but we project ourselves into the future, and we also project ourselves into our own past. Projecting ourselves into our future causes angst, worry, almost a terminal frightfulness, because we must confront the fact that we come to an end and we don't know how to avoid that. We can't avoid that. We project ourselves into the earlier parts of our life, and an interesting fact is that we cannot avoid the experience of guilt. And I would be tempted to say that guilt is the uncomfortable certainty that we are not what we could have been. It's true. And Heidegger is right about that. And not only is he right about that, but that is an ineliminable part of being a human being. And any scientific theory which either fails to talk about this or tells us we can't talk about it is just unacceptable. That's right? So we project ourselves into the future, we project ourselves into the past, and we confront Dasein in the present. And what we find out about ourselves when we confront our Dasein in the present is that we have a potential for freedom from being small b, which we have not completely realized. What this means is the following. We look into our past, we realize we have not been what we could have been. we look at the present and we realize we are not as free and as knowledgeable about being, as authentic as we could be. And we look into the future and we realize that there's a definite temporal horizon. Think about this now. We see our own death coming in the future. And this death, and we don't know when it will happen, it extinguishes all our possibilities, right? But it does not exhaust all our possibilities. In other words, between now and the time we die, there is a great variety of choices we could make, contexts we could construct, projects we could undertake. And the problem is that we will not undertake all of them. We will not do all these things. So that means between now and then, you've got to make some choices about what you're going to do with your life. And the problem is that you will not be able to do all the things you might wish to do or that you could do if you were an eternal being, right? And that means that you will not realize some of your possibilities. And that means you owe yourself a debt that you can never repay. And that is a sort of cosmic guilt. Yes, this is the echo of original sin when it gets theologized. It is the human condition, and we cannot escape it. If we try and escape it by truncating off reality, by adopting some sort of Humean or positivistic position, tells us don't worry about guilt, don't worry about the internal facts of your psyche. The result is that you concern yourself with beings. You lapse back into that pre-authentic, pre-philosophical state that Heidegger says you ignore at your peril, or that you engage in at your peril. If you want to be human, then get a soul. If you want to get a soul, then face the fact that there are certain ineliminable parts of your experience which you have to confront in order to be human, and there are certain questions that you have to ask in order to be human. The difficulty is, and the tension of being human is that you're forced to ask some questions for which there are no answers. You can't get around it. You must ask the question of being, even though it's not at all clear exactly what that means. And also, it's not at all clear what the answer is. And if the answer would come and shake you by the hand, it's not at all clear that you recognize it. So for a great many reasons, this is obscurity piled upon obscurity, piled upon obscurity, combined with a certain obvious and honest confrontation of the realities of human life. I think this is that sort of funny combination of obscurity and obvious kind of literary or psychic truthfulness is one of the characteristic amalgams of 20th century continental philosophy. Now, let's look back at the question of conscience. Dasein demands that we live our life facing death rather than denying it. And that means that ethics kind of implodes. So the only real obligation that we have left is that we should be authentic. And that ends up meaning that it's not so important what you do in life, it's how you do it. Right? And between now and the time you die, it's not so important what projects you undertake as it is that you should be conscious of the fact that you're not going to be able to undertake all of them, and that you have to decide which are better. The difficulty here is that this very easily shades off into straightaway nihilism. Heidegger, after all, became a Nazi. Heidegger, where it was advanced due to his political connections to National Socialism. Heidegger, who in his greatest work, his first great published work, Being and Time, was in Husserl's Jahrbuch, and Husserl was his teacher, and it was dedicated to Husserl. But alas, Husserl was a Jew. And so when Husserl was moved out of academic life starting in 1933, Heidegger publicly disassociated himself from Husserl. And Heidegger
is this one going too fast for you?
This sounds to me like the phenomenology of careerism, but I could be wrong. All right? It is a particularly unhappy circumstance, or when philosophers, at least those philosophers who claim to have a particularly deep or profound or important insight into life, should let us down in such an egregious way. There is something not only disconcerting about it, but something which makes me want to put the rest of his statements in italics and be very careful about how I read them. In some ways, if being in this pre-philosophical state of denying Dasein gets us to behave well, I would be inclined to say, well, I'd rather be stupid. But perhaps that's just me. Now, in addition to confronting Dasein through the vehicle of conscience and through the vehicle of existence, the historicity of human beings is, of course, of great concern to Heidegger. We are in some particular context at some particular time, and we must always be oriented towards the future. In particular, when we're oriented towards the future and our own demise and our own end, we have to do what Heidegger calls thinking about nothing. Now, in English translations of Heidegger, nothing gets a capital N. But alas, in the German language, all nouns are capitalized, so we don't have quite that way out. And thinking about nothing is one of the most trying things you can try and do. I mean, there are long sections. I know it sounds like almost a joke, but there are long sections which we discuss our encounter with nothing. And he means that nothing is not quite negation, but the source of negation. I have no clear conception of what that means and what's involved in thinking about nothing. I've tried working through it, and it runs us into all kinds of logical problems. And Heidegger will say, well, so much the worse for you and for your logic. Confront being as it really is. I can see why positivistic guys like Carnap and the Vienna Circle find it so trying. Lush ambiguity and elaborate self-indulgence. It's one of the things I think we would justifiably want to avoid in any philosophical construct. Now, during the Nazi years, he produced some of his most important work. And that Nazism should be hospitable to philosophy is, well, apparently the case. He's quite influential, and, well, it's perhaps not fair to judge a man's philosophical output by his life. It depends on how you look at philosophy. But I might be inclined to say that he is influenced by the cultural chauvinism of the time. He has some very peculiar ideas about language. Apparently, and I'm not joking here, he holds the view that philosophy can only be done in German. That is not a joke. I know that may sound funny. And I can imagine Wittgenstein in his grave turning over and over and over, saying nein, right? No in any language, no. Right? Philosophy can be done in any language. That's not correct. But Heidegger has what I would end up describing as a sort of mystical or magical view of language, which I think becomes more apparent in his late work, and which makes it that much more difficult, which makes obscure and difficult philosophy doubly difficult later on. German is perhaps the only language philosophy can be conducted in, maybe Greek. When he's in a good kind of a feel-good or a kind of generous mood, he will allow that perhaps some philosophy can be done in Greece, but that's about it. You have to do it in Greek. And what he's trying to do in this later work is to meet Nietzsche's objections about ontology. If you remember that Nietzsche at the end of the 19th century said that, look, our ideas about being have faded away into vapor and mist. Well, Heidegger in his Introduction to Metaphysics says no. Actually, Nietzsche is a sort of seismograph who sees the intrinsic depravity and mistakes in the Western tradition. And he sees that it leads up to this idea that we can't talk about being at all. What he does is show us the inauthenticity of all the history of philosophy since the Greeks. Right? So what he's going to do is drive us back beyond the Nietzschean impasse, back to the pre-Socratics, an admiration that he shares with Nietzsche. Of course, Nietzsche loved the pre-Socratics as well. In the post-war years, Heidegger's work continued to be difficult and almost impenetrable, and he spent most of his time analyzing the pre-Socratics. There's a very interesting set of essays called, what's the German name? Holzwege, which means wood trails. And what is interesting about wood trails, the reason why I chose that title, is that in German, wood trails have the idea of cul-de-sacs. In other words, you take a walk into the woods.
For 10 million? Fuck yeah,
towards nothing,
bust as many times as you want.
That are the logical or psychic analogs of cul-de-sacs. Blind alleys would be a way of translating Holzwege in a sensible way. And this is where we find most of his treatment of the pre-Socratics. There's an amazing and long, detailed essay on Anaximander. And I mean, he's one of the
easy
pioneering physicists. And it's amazing how much mileage you can get from one line. Since, after all, we only have one surviving line of Anaximander. And he's easily able to kick out, 50, 70 pages on that. And it's the most elaborate and implausible and self-referential kind of treatment. So his later work is even more difficult.
That's a bit of a lower bar than I think I'm willing to accept, but fair enough, I guess.
In some ways, by the end of his life, the great example of a philosophical enterprise is no longer Plato's dialogues. It has become Parmenides' poem about being. I don't imagine many of you at home or many of you here have gotten around to reading Parmenides' poem about being. Let me see if I can help you with that. What Parmenides says is that we must think and say that being is. From the other way, I debar you. What he means is that ontology is the first and primary and fundamental concern of human beings. All else follows from that. Heidegger is trying to drive us back to that pre-Socratic state of innocence. And the great exemplar of that will be Parmenides, the forbidding, difficult, completely abstract founder of ontology. Now, there are lots and lots of problems with this. It's hard to know exactly where to start, but let's take a couple of cracks at this. In the first case, Heidegger is so impenetrable that he often comes close to being self-parody. When he talks about nothing and thinking about nothing, and nothing nots rather than nothing negates, I have no clear idea of what this nothing is. I found out that it's not negation, and I find out a lot about what Heidegger's ideas are not. I often have a difficulty in finding out how to attach some sensible predicate to an idea about like nothing. What can you think about nothing? What can you say about nothing? Heidegger appears to suggest you can say quite a bit, but beats me what it amounts to. Many of Heidegger's ideas, or many parts of his writings, are elaborate puns and plays on words. I'll give you an example from the German. He says that our feeling with regard to our encounter with Dasein is uncanny. In German, that's unheimlich. And he says that this uncanny feeling of not knowing our way around in the world amounts to not feeling at home in the world. Now, in German, the word for home is heim. And so when we have this uncanny feeling, we feel unheimlich, which means unhomely, which means we don't feel at home in the world. So it kind of makes the idea of uncanniness and uncertainty and kind of anxiety and the feeling of being sort of homesick, of longing for our connection with being. Well, he kind of merges them all together in a kind of messy, mushy kind of linguistic overlap. And we might be tempted to think that that's a big problem with Heidegger, but I might be tempted to say that that's also the source of his richness. In other words, the fact that he's more concerned in many respects with connotations than denotations. The fact that he likes this messy overlap, this linguistic wordplay, these plays on words, these puns, and also he's famous for his elaborate and very implausible etymologies. When he doesn't know the actual historical source of the word, I think he usually makes it up. And then provides some, quote, philosophical argument to account for why only he understands the real sources where the rest of the lexicographers in the world do not. This happens all the time with the treatment of Greek. It also happens all the time with the treatment of German. Another problem that comes up is the problem of morality, mysticism, and nihilism. And here's where I would like to take a sort of crack at the continental tradition. I'd like to offer kind of foundational criticism. When you start talking about inferiority, when you move from the realm of public discourse about stuff out there, beings with a small b, to whatever it is you got going on inside you, all right? The difficulty is, first of all, that it's very hard to put words on this, to talk about this in any kind of intelligible way. The danger here is that you end up talking to yourself, right, which is the opposite of the philosophical enterprise. A second problem is that nihilism is always a possibility, because we might want to say almost the definition of nihilism is a speech that's indistinguishable from silence. And I've often thought that this discussion of nothing and what it does and how we encounter nothing is a very sophisticated way of not saying anything. Right, but that may be just me. My sense is, though, that this is that he's trying to do the impossible linguistically too much of the time. And my final difficulty with Heidegger, and I think this is the most interesting and important difficulty, at least from my perspective, is that this nebulous collection of insights and tautologies and unintelligibilities and neologisms, right, are a kind of transformation of theology. In other words, it seems to me that what Heidegger's being is, what his ontological search is theology with the God left out, right? And we worship ourselves, and we have obligations to ourselves instead of obligations to the deity. And our one obligation to ourselves is to be ourselves. Okay, I mean, this comes very close not just to solipsism, but to self-worship. I mean, what else is there to worship? There's only me. Solipsism is the great danger that recurs in all of these systems. Why? Because they're beginning from the inside and working out, and most of them never get out. That's the big difficulty. Generally speaking, and this is, I think, tells us something about this kind of philosophy. It's had rather little influence, certainly in the Anglo-American philosophical world. Carnap wrote a scathing treatment of some of Heidegger, which he said, this is a particularly unpleasant example of what happens to metaphysics, or what happens to your brain when you do metaphysics. This is the high point of unintelligible gibberish, and Carnap published a very unkind treatment of this. And you can kind of see why he would. Scientific guys are not going to want to hear about dread and death and stuff. So tables and chairs, atoms and physics and that kind of stuff. Well, where has it been influential? This is worth noting. In theology. Paul Tillich, the great systematic theologian, it's Heidegger, right, turned into theology. Think about it. I mean, he makes his death to Heidegger quite explicit. Those of you that know the work of Rudolf Bultmann, demythologized Christianity, this is all Heidegger. Heidegger Redux. He's back to haunt us again. They just transformed the old theological problem of Heideggerianism and Heideggerianism into what was alleged to be a new theological problem. May I suggest then that this enigmatic being, so central to Heidegger's thought, is in fact easily interpreted as the silence of God?
There it is. Well, think I am gonna go ahead and end it for the night here. It's been fun, as always. I'll be back on Friday. Everybody, thanks for hanging out. I love you all. You're all amazing. Everybody have a beautiful time. Bye-bye.